It is.
Alright, so chat, thank you guys for tuning in with me this evening as we're back out here in Destiny, here in TACT City. I know it's been a minute, but there's a reason why that is, and it's one of the things that I remember that you guys did donate for back during the May Sub goal. I don't know if this is going to be a short stream or a long stream. I'm going to try and take this as slow as possible so that way I can make sure my mic can get everything. Because the first time I did a documentary like this is when I did the 2018 to 2020 run for the first part of the one I made for Dragon Ball Fighters, and it felt like my mic was like touch and go, so I want to try and pace this out in order to make sure that the mic picks up everything as I go. Just in case my mic has problems, it's still the same mic back then, but I did also get it fixed. Fixed, words. So I'm gonna take this just one step at a time. Just cover and just touch on as many points as I was able to document that I could remember across 4 or 5 years of Destiny before I started slowing down.
Hey Britt, Knockout City is completely dead.
So, what do you mean it's dead?
They shut the server.
Knockout City is dead?
Yeah.
Bro, that game didn't even have a chance to live.
It's not. It's one of many games that they tried it didn't work, so they stopped fucking supporting it.
Because I remember so many people were going hamball on that game when it first came out.
I liked it. It was fun. Very fun and very cute. It could have been good, but they fucked up the launch and then they said, fuck it, we don't care.
And AB, thank you with the resub out there. I appreciate you.
No props, bro.
Trying to get my stream running.
Chat, let us begin, right? So this will stand on record as my current concluding synopsis of the Destiny 2 experience, right? Most of my equipment since then was already removed and destroyed. D2 file was originally deleted, but I went on ahead to reinstall it so that way, canonically speaking, it would make more sense to talk about Destiny on the game Destiny, rather than on something else and then try and have games and demos or something else elude the more optimal turnout of viewership. So, to understand the journey here in Destiny 2, I need to vaguely recap the days of D1 in less simpler times in this community, so to speak. Alright, so foreshadowing my it does a lot of foreshadowing of my heavily encompassing drive to then become more competitive on the video game, right? And then at times even more competitive than what even I can handle for myself in seeking a sense of self-acceptance. So
invite you moron.
Who? Anyway. So, back in Destiny 1, I wanted to be a Destiny player, right? And, oh, also, the links for each important thing that I'm going to talk about, I'll also try to make the link relevant at the time I'm talking about it, so for those in chat that want context to the match or said things, I can also try to post it as I go. Not everything will have a direct video and context to it, but some things will. You probably may remember it from Once Upon a Time in the feed. So back in D1, I wanted to be a Destiny player, right? And this takes off in trying to do a recollection of the video I made then and the synopsis of everything about Destiny 1. I was playing with my friends at first, just trying to enjoy the game. This is the backstory right now that I'm telling you for D1, and then we'll go into D2. That way you understand where I'm coming from, coming back here from there. So I was playing with my friends at first, just trying to enjoy the game. But what started out as simply playing ended up with me being around the wrong people that constantly either seemed to bully me or judge me by the color of my skin, or conveniently point out how little I know or knew about the game's mechanics or inner workings at that time. I ignored this at first and continued playing. But the more I had to tolerate this ignorant crap, the more I was fed up with wanting to be around people at the time if being talked down to was all I'm gonna be dealing with when they suddenly feel unhappy with me being comfortable. I was vaguely comfortable where I was then, but I needed to be away from a lot of them. I got so pissed off that I started to take Destiny 1 somewhat seriously because I refused to keep losing to people like this. I started getting into Trials of Osiris and PvP more, and more commonly, until it was a part of a ritual, basically. Nobody from said past circles was there. I went in solo a lot because I had to learn to take care of myself more effectively. In order for me to get ahead or to attempt to build on stuff, I have to learn how to take care of me before I can take care of others. Trial and error was in that too. It was a long learning process in order to actually learn how to properly take care of myself and everything on this video game. I went in solo a lot because I had to learn. Trials teams I got kicked off of immediately because I was either weak at playing Trials, I was weak at in general, or I brought the wrong gear, or in some cases I just said something off-putting. But it was just further aggravating, because there's literally been times where I've been booted from a team just because I said the wrong thing that seemed like the right thing at the time that a person would logically say. I became more angry with Destiny, trying to learn things I needed to know for myself, when all I want is to just have fun playing, if that's so hard to do. But apparently it was, so I have to push back, which meant pushing myself more, and so now I'm to take D1 rather seriously now to ensure that I could handle myself and essentially prove to myself that I'm not weak. But I have to do so much better than I was doing at that time. Going above and beyond, essentially. I never knew that so many toxic fools existed in the depths of Destiny community at that time, but I'll be damned if I am going to keep losing to a lot of selfish, ignorant, racist, stupid people like this. I left some of those people behind, and I became more of a seriously competitive player. I also became a vague raider in those days in order to learn about how the deeper edifice of team communications and cooperation functions for different people. That way I can see beyond what I see for teams and team-based gameplays aside just coordinated shooting or coordinated executions of an idea or a whim, let's say. I tried to learn how to be a Sherpa too, but I definitely failed at that in my first rodeo. And for those of you guys out there, a Sherpa is a Destiny player that's helping someone else through something difficult. Usually you offer your services at a price if you're competent, knowledgeable, or skilled enough, or if the people are desperate enough. Originally, Sherpas in Destiny helped people get through raids, but the term gradually became less restrictive to just raider work and more towards Destiny veteranship itself, or an experienced state of game sense offered to activities, right? And again, sometimes with a price, but usually it's a respect to seniority to the field. Because that was what, like 2-3 years later when I started doing that. But that's at that time. That was back in 2015, 2016 when I originally tried to put my services out there, just to go solo anyways. That way I can just do more and more of the work and encompass it. And that was for Crota's End and Vogue, and then later King's Fall. King's Fall would end up ultimately replacing them both. They were the main raids I kept playing through to learn, but also learn how to cooperate and how to be cooperative with players I may not really like being around, or that kept trying to run the raid program into the ground. By that I mean players trying to solo shit they don't need to, arguing with the raid team leaders or the organizers, or even blaming others for your own shortcomings. That same problem was what was wrong with many Trials teams I was in. Exactly how I said it. Exactly what you just heard, that's exactly what the hell the Trials teams was. But instead of trying to take responsibility for it, it's the blame game. I stayed in raid teams, as an ad cleanup person for every raid team to improve my aim until I got more experience and started stepping up to bigger roles to be more responsible for team success. A series of events happened after another falling out, not too long before TTK came out. TTK, that's abbreviation for Taking King for the Destiny heads. That led to a huge series of events where I met someone of those past bigoted fools, and it became an issue for them to deal with me now, being better than them from the hours of practice and application I gave to the video game. I chose to be a good sport about fighting them rather than letting them get to me, but they didn't. They became excessively bitter about it, or continued to sprout racial slurs and some pissed off tone, like this weak N-word beat me like fucked off, or just block me. Which the latter is fine with me. That's less stupid asses to deal with or pretend like I like talking to. Because now they don't have anything over me, I have everything over them, right? I'm a grown man, but I do have feelings that need to be respected too. And for a time I was enjoying the game again finally. I felt more confident with myself. And I felt I now wanted to aspire to even higher goals in the community, more than just casually playing. I wanted to play against the best players and continue in learning what I'm doing right and what I'm needing to improve on. Another friend I still kept around. I should have blocked him earlier with the rest of this, but it is what it was. He never really sat well accepting that there was good days and bad days that players have playing video games. This was the online user individual, if you guys remember the documentation of Destiny 1, which I'll link in the thing in a minute as soon as I find it. I'm finding it while I'm trying to talk. But he never sat well accepting that there were good days and bad days. I was more relaxed at that time of what I was doing with him rather than over him, and then after a while, the more bitter he became, I was just tired of the needlessly salty and irritating know-it-all disposition that he began vaguely imposing or hinting at. And I got tired of trying to talk to him if he's just going to keep talking to me or my friends in some type of unnecessary condescending tone. I stayed delving into different game modes and raiding teams after we went our separate ways altogether, but something had changed for me. But it wasn't for the better. And it was around here where I began playing Destiny a lot more religiously, and it was a part of me that drove to become even more competitive on the game, but it wasn't for the right reasons. And it just started becoming a really toxic dedication. This was because I just needed to do vastly better than myself, and just become more god tier, or as best as humanly possible, without trying to hurt myself. Because it was the fact of this one dude that was the reason why I had played Destiny 2 for so long. Hey, Roms. It's the fact that I played Destiny 2 for so long with this guy, and the fact that you have the gall to be so unnecessarily condescending after all this time, now that I finally have what I want, and I did it in the right way without letting this game take a hold of me or the people corrode me. And you of all people look down on me for this. I approached the situation with extreme prejudice. And I just couldn't stand losing to such a prick. I'm fine with winning and losing games as a part of great competition that helps growth in the field and potentially making new friends. But I just hate garbage players that can't accept change. You can't accept losing, or throw a huge shit fit when they lose 1 or 2 games like it's the end of the world. Like, I became a very competitive player at that time, more unhealthy than I really care to admit, but I do have to accept it in my later years. But I can also take losing. Losing allows me to let it go, and I can build off of this. But people like online, Tiggle, Chris, Johans, they can't accept that. They just fold under pressure or give up or keep making excuses when they lose. I got sick of this. I just deleted half my friends list at that time because I just knew deep down that a lot of these people were either shit, weak, or they just make excuses. I wasn't going to take that chance with some of them that I haven't even met before. So I just also chose to delete people that sent me friend requests and just not engage with them. I chose to become a lot more ostracized for the right and for the wrong reasons. And I just avoided a lot of that situation. I can sense sometimes when it happens, and so a lot of that constant anger I had each reflecting day, I directed it into PvP in order to feel better every day, or attempt to feel better about myself, right? And it was just like every day I was like always in Crucible for at least like 2 or 3 hours, just dropping 20 plus kills or whatever for some stupid KD that didn't really matter. It's just a matter of just taking my anger out in the video game and just taking it out on the people in the field, not so much in the messages or in the community. At Destiny 1's close, for me, that was around when I closed my original YouTubing project and I left D1 all in all. I was still in the limelight of trying to seek great players. Not limelight, but in the position. In the position of seeking great players, but it was impossible to do when so many players at that time made the transition to PlayStation 4 Destiny, when Rise of Iron became a thing, before the Age of Triumph overhaul update happened that closed out Destiny 1's continued maintenance. Many players made the conversion to PS4, so competition had died out too fast for me to try to benefit from by the time I actually became skilled or knowledgeably competent at playing the majority of Destiny. I decided that it was best for me to just leave Destiny altogether, because there's a lot of reflecting that I have to do, and because I have nothing to prove, or that I need to really do on a rapidly dying game, now that Destiny 2 is what people are waiting for now. Check right here. So you're basically caught up to speed on Destiny 1 as a whole, as eventful as it was. That's everything that happened in Destiny 1 over the course of the 2-3 years then. I wanted a lot out of playing D1 to realize a nice dream, but I ended up with more bad memories than good. However, what was good memories to dwell on was remarkable from good friends and my gaming clan both. I was happy to leave Destiny because my time dealing with ignorance was done and gone. But I don't have the energy or time to really fight more battles that shouldn't have needed to exist, just because a lot of ass-hurt players can't get good or be respectful to each other. And I was just done with it. Originally, I didn't care about Destiny 2 at all, even after studying the beta during its drop in August 2017. Not because of the microtransaction BS from Activision, but rather I felt I didn't need to be back in this environment without a purpose. And second, it was just too much money to spend on the game after seeing what the D2 game's pre-order cost was, because it was fucking dumb. Next, so a close friend got D2 and was slowly wanting me to play Destiny 2 to help him out here and there. Honestly, carrying him and his friends occasionally through God knows what. That is easy to me, because, you know, grinding strikes really isn't hard unless you're making it hard. But I sugarcoat it because I know he pulls his weight from time to time. I have good history with him, and he's a part of the past gaming clan that I was with on PlayStation 3's years. So about a month later, thanks to PSN Plus's free monthly, I picked up Destiny 2 free online to actually try it out and such, because it was free online back at that time before they actually pushed the mandate of the video game being free, so that way players can enjoy the video game as a whole at that time before they start taking another direction with the light level continuity. I picked it up for free to actually try it out. Good story. Gameplay itself was meh. Side missions meh. Some quests, the exotic quests were really unique. Situational or passing interest. Nightfalls, while challenging a lot and very thorough, they're fun, but they're not as fun as they used to be on D1. Like the D1 strikes were very, very good. I strongly got into Destiny to try it out, but I also quickly lost interest because there didn't feel like anything was there for me at the time. I picked it up to help him, and mainly that was it. I knew the work well when it comes to a lot of Destiny mechanics for Nightfall, so it was honestly just child's play going through this, and I took the effort to also teach him what to do, that way he can take care of himself in order to understand how the raids work. But not raids, how the strikes work, and then their bigger versions, Nightfalls. With Nightfalls is literally just more health conservation and knowing a strike inside and out well enough to know how to navigate your cheese routes. Or just bring the right gear, that way you don't have to worry about cheesing it too much during battles where you're going to die in one hit. Or those beautiful sponges they call mini bosses. And then so as the grinding got easier, I wasn't really motivated to play it at that time. I slowly started moving into Overwatch at that time. That was Overwatch 1. Barring said friends pestering of me wanting to play D2 more after I said I'm not really interested in doing it, I just decided that okay, I'll play it and get back into it, but there has to be a reason why I do it besides just helping you. Because me personally, I'm old-fashioned to where if I invest in something, there has to be a purpose to it. I don't just mindlessly or senselessly play video games like your average monotone online player. There has to be a purpose and an end game to said purpose for me to give my 100% to this. Unless the game isn't meant to really be given much attention outside just an occasional pastime. So my goal here was to accomplish a dream this time and not deal with the bullshit doing it. So I went on ahead and decided that I want to resume the structure of what I wanted in D1 here in D2, hopefully on a better footing. And so the dream was to be a part of the strongest players early in Destiny 2's history. So you ask yourself, okay, why this stream? Well, the first Destiny game, I personally felt like I was robbed of an overall great casual and competitive experience, both that I sought going into the game due to a lot of the bigoted, racist, and condescending fools of the past that I had to deal with from time to time just in my goings and comings before I found good memories with both Killer and Flint. I will seek to achieve the greatness unlike any other, so that way I can just reach a new plateau of contentment for myself. And contentment in fighting against the better players in the early days that are trying to develop a new sense of bloodstream for the eras that are to come for this era of Destiny. Just being a part of the start, essentially just being a part of the start of the era this time. Instead of coming in on the tail end of a past one, I can actually try and be a part of the founding of the new blood, the new day. I could have a better chance at encountering the better players at the beginning or somewhere soon after, I can become better established and seek to have my own fun this time, in public, vaguely and private, before reaching out to let people know I have the game, and absolutely before anything has a chance to happen or more idiots wind up knowing me that I might have to deal with later on if I actually end up enjoying the gameplay. Like, you know, prepping for future jackassery. But as much as I want to believe that something good will happen, there's always that chance something bad can happen, because I know what happens with my atmosphere for some reason. It's like I always attract fuckery for no reason. So when I did pick up heavy comp playing, that and then PvE and this were literally the reasons why I became really interested in following D2. So I started in-depthly following the Red War campaign. Red War. I only interacted with those whom Flint brought along for our Trials runs, or cont runs that I met during some of our raid team runs, and that's about it at first. That's the early parts of when I met Bubba and Lupovane, which I'll also get to those later on in the story as I go. So basically at this time early on, I just refused to expose myself to the community working. Just yet. To avoid being around people. Hang on, I lost my place here. I gotta keep reading. Where's I at? Yeah, I interacted with him basically at this time. I refused to expose myself. I wanted to be off to myself and just leave it be. So I liked being only with close friends or only with just close playing companions, playing Destiny, because they know how I am, they know my norms, and they know why I prefer to be alone. But I'm generally most likely by myself a lot of the time, so that way I can also just learn and enjoy at my own pace, on my own, with no ties to anybody. Looking back at it all, in some sense, yes, I did pick it up for the nostalgia of Destiny, but that's not the main reason. The main reason was to just have what's mine, that I want to have from this game, that I'm also willing to work for, more than anybody else of this generation. Just a goal to compete in D2 that was incomplete in D1. Picking up D2 predominantly for the competitive scene wasn't the best fiscal decision at first, possibly even spur of the moment, but it started out very nicely for my efforts, as I was able to see a great deal of competition come to pass in Trials grinding and ritualistic PvP Crucible grinding. I didn't really care about grinding Nightfalls or Strikes after a while, or even the timely exotic questing. I could occasionally do that too, yes, but it's not why I was interested in Destiny 2 play. So I can do it to pass the time, but I'm not going to lie to myself. A lot of this ideal was exercised and gradually improved upon throughout both the Osiris and Warmind DLCs as I stuck to a positive drive in my growth, ditching a lot of the past ideal and thinking to establish the future thinking I want to see come to fruition. I went about this all what I believe to be the right way, as this was done with no ill will or bad intention or evil drive. Because it took a while to try to mentally detox myself from D1 to understand that a lot of my canister from D1 was corroded because I did it to myself. Because in the process of trying to be thick-skinned, I also let dozens and dozens of people bother me to where it drove a vastly unhealthy obsession with competition, equivalent to what I had on past games like Call of Duty or Transformers or even Rainbow Six Siege. And I had to catch myself before it was a point of no return again. And I know coming back here is a chance it'll be exposed again, but I didn't think it would be that big of a problem. Now, later on as I go, I was wrong in that accord, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Much of my D2 journey had been fairly good. More than I can ask for, up till that particular point, the advent of Forsaken. It was a good and a bad thing for me. When Forsaken dropped, not only did Trials become extinct, that was Trials of the 9, it became extinct because of all the competition that had died on D2. It literally just died off for a time with Trials. Like, I was seriously pissed off because what I was promised by the new DLC upon its trailer was a lie to me. It revived a lot of the gameplay and fixed much of the PvP essentially for what was needed, yes, but the focus shifted completely to new gen people and not anymore was it focused on past people or past activities that bring longevity to gameplay of Destiny, at least at that time. In a positive perspective, I can say that Forsaken was pretty nice, but I needed engaging post-game activities. Quests are nice, but they're boring after a while, especially when sprinkled all over the place. Gambit was not fun at first. I thought it was a garbage-ass game mode that they put in this fucking game. My mind shifted to the thought of, okay, now I have to stick to competitive mode only to have the satisfaction I want if I want to fight actually really good or sweaty D2 players. In addition, I have to try this with quiet-ass randoms. Like, it's literally just fighting with colorful bots. My mind about Gambit had changed later on down the road, but it wasn't until way later on when I openly accepted a pinnacle PvE activity such as Gambit, or by extension, formerly Gambit Prime. Looking back at it now, honestly, I think Gambit Prime should have stuck and I probably would have been playing it more passionately. Gambit Prime actually is sweatier than Gambit for what it was. Well, hell, y'all will never know that now. Easier said than done, which was expected. These being gamers that create or manifest self-unmotivating conflict that in team activities, expecting others to then clean up after the mess for them mid-game, or else players focusing more on hitting max light levels than actually improving themselves devoid of numbers on a screen. Board chasers, basically. I stayed on board even after the Black Armory DLC, but I made limited appearances with a lack of growing interest. Finally, I just felt like I just didn't want to be here anymore since I'm only showing up solely for one activity that I can barely get a team for to do effectively anyways. It just becomes tedious when I feel like giving a damn, and then I'm playing solo a lot more with a severe lack of motivation and interest if I'm the only one doing the most work, or I suddenly have all the pressure on me when everybody keeps dying so fast. At that point, I stayed in PvP basically to prove to myself that I can keep up with the pessimistic Destiny PvP no-lives that seem to plague the video game in different realities. It felt right that, at this time, I should start to back away from the scene rather than force it, or feel like I gotta force it to play when I'm not doing anything else I like in the game, or anything that's holding my attention. Rather than wait for something that's not going to happen, I'm just wanting a change of scenery. Barring select exotic quests and the heroic version of the Spire of Stars raid, very good raid by the way, I completed all of the base activities in the game that aren't allotted to a weekly reset for growing rewards that I could be content with at that time. So approximately that was around February 2019. I left Destiny 2 for a time till I cared to pick it up again, and that was until like mid-May 2019. And then during this time frame, my focal point shifted. Well, between February and May, my focal point shifted to Rainbow Six Siege and Monster Hunter World, respectively. Alright, clock it in right here. So, we're going to talk about the pre-Forsaken and the Rocksteady contest that they had at that time. That was back when there were occasional competitions and sponsored sponsored contests and prizes that you could win through Destiny gameplay and forums for Reddit and Destiny Tracker and a couple other relevant side sites. When Destiny was actively sponsored and people could be somebody on this game, just like you could do it on COD or Rainbow, you could literally do something here with a team that you make here on this game and profit heavily from it. That's what the idea was at the time that the company went for with the contest. And a few people did prosper from it and amount to something. Anyway, I'll just tell you my portion of it. So, I did come back into the game's online scene around this time. That was around mid-May. To see this coming RockStar contest. It was promoting the coming of Destiny's Forsaken DLC. If you guys remember, this was stuff that they promoted literally around a lot of soda cans or on the main labels for like Canada Dry or not Nestle, but no, some Nestle brands. And then they also started doing this for energy drinks. Mainly energy drinks. A lot of the old energy drink brands like Monster or Coke or Red Bull. I don't know if that word actually got censored or not, but I'll risk it anyways. But they went on ahead and they promoted these on the labels in order to promote Destiny Forsaken. If you guys remember that. If you look at a convenience store or a dollar store or a beer and wine store, you probably seen it on the labels at that time when they were advertising the hell out of Forsaken. I remember parts of that contest. Gamers could enter codes to win prizes, unlock an exclusive in-game emblem, and earn special access within the RockStar Riots in-game competition. It was a 6-week in-game competition. The top 4 players rising above the rest of the competition on RockStar's leaderboards win a fly out to Bungie headquarters in order to compete live on Twitch. All the competition's updates and features could be checked mainly at RockStarEnergy.com. RockStarEnergy.com. At the very least, the competition not only gives you a little bit of notoriety in your own image, but also helps players get started on the road to a platform establishment and exposure to the bigger inner workings of Destiny gaming at that time. It's the company trying to pass on a good thing, basically, in order to make those faces, make the name faces on this platform for Destiny at that time. That was back when the game actually was, like I said, supported by other media outlets to where they could host competitions every now and again and sponsor players, like give them that push. Hell, if only the gameplay didn't shift another direction when Trials of the Nine was removed, or even when Activision cut ties to the company, these might have still taken off to give that opportunity to other newer players, or even new streamers, to promote the game that they love playing so much and adds variety to Destiny viewing options. But, I mean, D2 Media can't give back in such a simple way that helps itself in the process right now. It's just a pending money game in some sense. So, back to context here. So, I had to buy myself a couple of RockStar energy drinks to get the code. But the balancing act there was how many I could buy to attempt to get the code when I'm out at the grocery store or the gas station. I got about 5 of those drinks, but they were spread out in different ways. Because 2 of them, one of my friends, IRL, bought himself for him to drink, just gave me the code. Well, those didn't have codes, but the other ones that he bought that gave to me that did have a code to it. Another couple I bought myself a few days later. Those did have a code that I could apply. That was like a good $15 worth of the codes at the time. But those energy drinks weren't cheap. Because at that point, buying Monster was really not cheap. You're talking about like what, $3.99, $4.99 area for a can? Fuck no. Hell, if I knew my younger self now, I would slap myself across the mouth for drinking that shit. Like, thankfully I didn't have to pay directly with like some credit card or PayPal crap to enter all that sponsor contest, but I had to pay in the more indirect sense to find the right can, and trying to not get used to the taste of Monster too strongly. That energy drink is okay, but it's not something you want to drink all the time. Even Red Bull is not something you want to drink like that, let alone find. That was just a side note of sorting out when to drink them. A lot of my friends never really supported the idea of buying them, and then didn't really want to try one. So I really can't make a lot of recipes out of them either. Something that can apply all this, so it's not like the money was wasted if I can't drink them. On the website, there was also a brief trivia area at that time, after enrollment, that tests your knowledge of PvE rating or else PvP with popular maps, the most seen tools or exotic gear between classes. I gave my best performance between the start of week 1 and week 2 on those things. Like, literally, they test you before you actually fight each other. They test you in general, how much do you know about Destiny. So if you've been on the game long enough to know the common stuff, which comes after hours and hours and hours of playing, it'll just come naturally what is what. So they pretty much made the effort to reward the no-lifism. If that's a word. No-lifism is what I'm saying. On the website, there was also the brief trivias like what I was saying. So week 1, week 2, those being the only times I was actively on leaderboards and had progressed only but so far. I didn't get enough points together to go further than that. These were best of 2 or 3 decisions for the trivia. Then the gameplay, same thing. Week 2 on the gameplay itself. Week 1, I lost the first game with Slayer. A guardian named Slayer. Then I won the follow-up game against a guardian named Midnight Damage. Week 2, as it followed up on the board, I lost a qualifiers match, best of 2, against a fighter named Xanders at 12-20 twice. Then, in getting back on track from second pool, which resumed was loser's bracket outline, or the follow-up matches to get points, I lost this handgun match to this guardian named Evade. I lost the first one 20-15, and then I lost 20-1. I waited once it reached the halfway point in week 4 roughly when the latter half of the scores updated. I mean, you're either free to keep going or you're out now at this point. And so I was out. So I read through the rest of the guideline to see what I have. Seeing that I missed my chance to have or play for anything else at that point, I didn't get a chance to really earn the trip out to Bungie HQ. Didn't really get any compensation out of that. I did well enough between open combat and the initial PvP quiz portion to get myself some of the status of online gaming. However, it would only be a hollow presence after its initial warm embrace. The catch for this is that the status or the clout or achievement is only truly useful to the player in building a neat platform for yourself on Destiny when you're sponsored personally by a group or by a team to allow it to build up through added exposure and travel relevant to Destiny. So when you get sponsored, you basically have to do the whole free ride being that dude for Destiny. So you're basically trying to be the competition is essentially trying to make the Destiny equivalent of like pro Fortnite players. or whatever, like what would be like the main Fortnite player at the time. I can't remember his name. It's essentially trying to make something like him.
Ninja.
Thank you. Yeah, it's essentially trying to make the equivalent of a ninja, but just not as big as Ninja. And so that posed a mass problem in seeking out prominent gain from this, for what little I could gain from this gaming gesture to make something of myself. Sponsors, leaders, and or team pickup players under pre-understood circumstances of their blueprints, centering around those that have either 1, a following is a must. I had a small one at that time, because it was mainly Transformers based, no Destiny. 2, being affiliated is a must. This was before I was affiliate. 3, being able to stream once a week is a must. That's something I kind of was doing, because I was trying to see if I could get involved with understanding how the Leviathan raid works at that time, before I became more openly streaming my comp games. Well, not comp games, casual games, then comp games. Before it was just solely comp games. The time of trying to act on this opportunity was at a time when I didn't have Twitter or Twitch at that time, or a lot of outgoing social media that could help with the credited opportunity I was able to be a part of this past week. While I had a decent sized following, it's not an openly big or huge following at that time. None or hardly any of them were a Destiny following, but tune in here and there to see Destiny content as a plus point of what they originally came to see. As for the remaining notes, I never knew at the time that being affiliated was a benefactor of live streaming. Honestly, I never paid Twitch much mind or never knew much of it till delving further into the Xenoverse and Rainbow communities. But back to the point here, like having my chance to build up what I earned was a lost cause. It's like having the right to say I'm good, but I can't actually do much of anything about it to own the claim, lacking the added outlets that could benefit me from having this exposure, now in a state of uncertainty. It's like playing with a glass half full, essentially. I decided to make my next move there. Not sure what I want for myself right now. So to make the most of this blessing, I just planned my next step out on a PvP-based perspective a bit more thoroughly, which would have been done later on at a later time, since my focus went back to Rainbow Six Siege at this time until I chose to get back into Destiny. Since I was uncertain about a lot of this, I decided, okay, I don't know what I want to do with this game, so I'm not going to play it. Fuck it. And so I went back to Rainbow Six Siege, and I continued the grind on Rainbow over there to Gold Plat area. Alright, so check here. So this goes to later area of July, August, September area of 2019. One of those 3. I know it was closing in around one of my birthdays. So saying this took a turn at this point was an understatement. So I returned in full to Destiny activity, still juggling this with full Rainbow activity that's been unchanged, but I digress. As I played Rainbow Six Siege with the structured goal in mind that month, I did the same thing to incorporate this onto Destiny, so I can play this platform with a more structured purpose and not the hollow passing interest. So I felt that something I invested a lot of my money into at that time, it needs to be properly honored and played with more love from me for something that this game can give me and that can be sought to be respected of. Because at that point, I think I sunk the emotes, the DLC pre-order. I think I sunk like about 200 in this game, somewhere around there. Somewhere around 200 at that time. I decided to strive for Fable Glory Rank in Crucible. I achieved Legend Mastery of Valor PvP rank numerous times, like anybody else just playing it months straight, and that know how to aim or that have attention to detail in the enemy. So I thought, okay, how much harder could this be to work for? And hey, I would actually find out as the story goes the level of character it takes to endure, to be honest. So, in studying the assessment of this of my work, there would be many layers yet to be shown, starting of which in that I need to start with a team. And so I started to try and find a team through Reddit forums, Bungie Live, the chat section of stattracker.com, which was a beautiful mistake early and later on in that lifespan of that prerogative, and GameFAQs, since I still had access to my GameFAQs account from a past competitive life cycle. Thank you very much, follow Cybertron. And so light levels weren't really a bother. Class typing is an easy understatement right now through my experimentation amidst Titan and Warlock equally besides just the Hunter. And weapon knowledge was fair. Weapon knowledge will vary with the user or its availability. It's having a team that's the issue right now. Because I had the one pending friend at that time, Flint Hart, that could occasionally make time to help me in the team building process of this tricky step, but these rendezvous were limited with time varying IRL between us. It went without saying that this starting part has to be done with a team for the most effective results to be produced in a growing cancerous environment I knew very little about on the grander scale, as well as developing my own survival skills further on a larger scale, yet to be seen, or to be able to outlast a number of opponents, or even being in unfair matchups that you just need to know how to maneuver in, period. There's a lot to chance that I have to learn about as I go, and study them as the matchups and updates evolve, and did evolve, while structuring this team. So this is a very multi-faced problem that has an answer to it, but it's not a straight shot answer. Warmind, Forsaken, Season of the Drifters, Season of the Opulence, Season of the Undying, Season of the Dawn. It goes through a good chunk of rather needed and unneeded updates, to say the least, as the game develops. So at this time, I took to creating my representing team for Destiny 2. This was to continue representing TACT respectfully in a new-gen competitive field, reaching out to players seeking a good time with an upcoming group. Presence of a couple of veterans, so everyone has a chance to strive for higher or more with a fairly positive experience. And again, I reached out to Reddit back when I cared about trying to have an account on Reddit and GameFAQs to compose a team that I wanted to have for fun, or to at least have logically from a logical starting point. Then LFG, that was a lost cause. Reddit, Bungie forums were not the best choices to use as high-level gamers, time wasters, or large trafficking shit talkers had to be cleared out, but I wasn't to give up on this regardless of being ignored or oversighted. So I was jumping back and forth between teams because there was no one solid team I was ever staying with. I wanted to have a solid team to do this task with, so it would leave very little to chance, or as little as possible to chance. I did have standards. Like, I wasn't going to just recruit whiners, posers, inexperienced players, jokesters, perfectionists, or the uninspired gamers that would just whine or be less interested about crap through PvP rather than just persevere over it. Why this mindset? Because I was trying to avoid the cycle of recruiting new-gen TACT players on Destiny, like what I failed to do in the earlier aspects of my leaderships in earlier parts of competing in other gaming communities. And I wanted to try and catch myself in these catches right now. Because the main point that I had once upon a time, outside the lack of communications from my team, is also recruiting casuals to do competitive work. That's the biggest recurring mistake that I've had in all my leaderships across all the video games that I've had or held a team, is that it goes to shit having casuals do competitive work if they were never built to do it in the first place. And so again, jumping back and forth, so they do or don't join my team. eventually I had to take TACT away before I could determine whether or not it was good to try and keep this here or not. The standards. So, as I apparently came in for the late, or for the in-depth PvP, I'm just generally stuck with whatever I get, or get what I'm deserving of through these events, right? This became hard early on in my bid on account of, okay, one, people don't pay any mind to the non-popular YouTubers. You only pay attention to the popular people. So people like me, or that have been around for years, likely, but now also don't likely have any consistency in terms of an audience that you think would be acceptable. Like, we've been around the block, but you don't believe it. Two, many quote-unquote skilled players ignored requests through the process as they just assumed that they were to carry me and not work with me. Three, any players that did want to join my team couldn't join in the end because of things being in the way of inconsistent times that they're available to play that conflict with my time due to time zones, or being up too late in the morning, work, kids, wife, girlfriend time, or even simply just forgetting repeatedly too much, which that last one is bullshit, but I'll give you that, fine. Anyway, regardless of mounting bullshit against me, I persisted to find a team or else work with whom I have, or just go solo a few games at a time. Rinse and repeat as this would be in order to concretely find a team with and without Flint's help at that time, it would gradually account to a lot of small nails that add up to the coffin I was actually making myself mentally in this claim for Crucible greatness, right? So then we go into this big battle, which I'm gonna see if I can find this for on my YouTube channel, because it's gonna talk about this match I had with this FaZe member. Hang on, I gotta find this first, that way you can actually just see it in context for yourself. Bingo, got it, okay, hang on. Okay, this last text right here is the link for the video if you wish to see it while I'm talking. So, I'm going to talk about this FaZe dude. So, there was a time at the beginning of this committed elo grind where I almost had a highly... Hey, Rums, what you need, man? Where I almost had a highly skilled gamer in my corner, a highly skilled player in my corner, at least one time to try to aid in my aspirations. It was this Destiny 1 Elitist. He was an ex-FaZe member. Very, very good guy in a way, personality-wise. I was almost able to recruit him in his services because we had a mute point that we both lived up to, but it just didn't go through. He was among the few people that actually wanted to help me see this through in his own way, but we did have an agreement, and it is what it is. So, it's a battle that stood out, and it holds very strongly in my memory to this day. So, long story short, this kid's Destiny 2 clan had died off. This was the fall of a past Destiny gaming clan called Merc that had disbanded when the members for this group became inactive or stopped caring altogether. Players left, became inactive. The group died off slowly but surely, right? It's like that's the fate of every clan. The founder of that clan, Clan Merc, he's a past Destiny 1 advocator and figure of this Xbox clan called the Agents of Apollo. His name was Choyman18. I was friends with him for a decent amount of time. He expressed an idea about moving on to other games and leaving Destiny behind until the interest comes up to want to play it again, and probably go delving into Battlefield or Apex or whatever other things he wanted to delve into. I thought that was some interesting fascinations, but I mean that's what he wants to do, so it's all good. Knowing I stayed in comp a lot of my time, Choi suggested that I should try to pick up this kid from the PS4 block of this now dead clan, and made the effort to point me in the direction of the right person that he knew. He was the main link for several past competitive Destiny groups and clans, including Agents of Apollo, as well as a couple of Trials of Osiris teams. He's a very rather talented kid, to be sure. This young man was named FaZe Nasty 27, and he could help with the expansion of my competitive endeavors on Destiny 2. I was still composing my Destiny 2 team that I need the whole for this time to succeed in reaching Fabled 1, and I wasn't to keep dealing with any consistent players or one and done that. So I took the time to sit and talk to him, right? At first he declined my offer right away. He didn't even really hear out the proposition at first. So I sweetened the deal to intrigue him. Not with money, but with publicity, in order to help him get his name out there. So outside Agents of Apollo and FaZe, and whatever new stuff that he wants to do or explore. I told him who I was and where I came from, and where I want to go for Destiny 2. Wasn't a short story, kind of similar to this story. Pieces of my story caught his interest back and forth, but he stayed on to listen over just logging out of the voice chat. He actually could have logged out of the voice chat at any time when I started actually just delving into the reason of why Destiny Crucible fascinated me so much to go this far to make a team instead of just paying people. So, upon second thought, he decided to listen to my team offer. FaZe Nasty then made a deal with me to see where I stood and what makes me different from other people and other clan leaders that have pitched him a similar offer, but that he's also likely carried in comp in past years. So him still being unsure that I'm strong enough to handle this or that I'm powerful enough to oppose him, basically he's challenging me to a duel. And so I have to prove to him directly in combat that I don't need him to have him on my competitive team. So I had to take a minute to think about this, and I agreed to his challenge. And so I accepted that match, to which we had on it was on Bungie Day, the Destiny holiday. And so we did this one-on-one according to traditional hunter law. It's an old Destiny community thing that they founded back in the Destiny community in D1 long ago, of how you do Destiny dueling with character specialists. So it's one match, one decision. Since it's with hunters, one handgun, one sniper, no supers, no heavy. 20-minute time limit. So the link is right there if you wish to see the battle. Long story short, I did lose, yes. The score was 25-22. I didn't win that public showdown we agreed on, so he didn't join my team as what we agreed on. But he stated to me that in going this far to prove my point about how serious I was to go the distance, I did earn his complete respect. I don't have the screenshot anymore, but I went on ahead and just quoted what it is they said at that time. So he was just like, okay, you know, lots of players ask me to join their team, and I basically carry a lot of them unless I'm not feeling it that day or I don't really care to help them. I come to find out that the team leaders are either really weak, or they're not really good, or don't really talk to me or talk with me until the next time they need me, basically using you. I noticed that you get your hands dirty and you're actually knowledgeable about social inner workings and layerings. And you seem to be fairly sweaty even if you don't win. You're not lazy. I actually like the way you play. To me, that's a win. The struggle would continue, yes, and while I did lose potentially one of the bigger matches I've had on Destiny, that actually still felt like a win. Like, I sought to recruit him to do the same thing for my team that I just did plainly fighting him. Like, if I was able to go the distance with that much and almost beating a guy who was this skilled, definitely better than I was for an ex-FaZe member. Okay, and it shows me that I could actually pull off my bid. Like, I wish I won, because the kid was seriously fucking good, but I'm happy that I lost in a way. It'll just be a lot harder without him, but that is what fate is. Like, true strength comes from not using people, but from applying better sense learned from people. And that right there is actually a lesson I had to learn the hard way myself in continuing to apply a lot of stuff in Destiny's workings. So, taking with me a better sense in playing, I got back to work in the Destiny field, right? The struggle would continue across 4 months, honestly. This is just 4 months where, again, I kind of religiously commit to playing on Destiny. I'm managing this half-assed team that's barely getting by. We're losing more than we're winning, or people leaving after 1 or 2 games. I replace them, and then they leave, so I gotta replace them, thus increasing mismatches and given variables. Meanwhile, I'm updating the process of finding people on forums that are fairly sociable, but are always ignoring me after the fact. I'm also training the better end results of 2 younger players to not only try and surpass me, but to also help them understand the mechanics of Destiny and understand the PvP arena on the deeper layer that they haven't experienced yet. So, side note is basically trying to turn kids that love Destiny. I'm trying to see if I can turn these kids into monsters if they can apply themselves enough. So the way to position yourself on each map, the way weapons work, the best weapon types to apply for each map, rotating in and out, with a team stack, or by yourself for your own touch with adapting results, the way to establish map sense, each map itself to have better effectiveness as a team, your rotations, the methods to wait out supers, the way to improve with lesser used or seen gear and weaponry when you don't have the meta accessible or unlockable or the opportunity in general to obtain them, learning the weapons damage fall off, learning fall off damage, the range of weapons and radius for each weapon typing, hand cannons, pulse rifles, snipers, rocket launchers, shotguns, fusion rifles, how to make the most of what you have, even if it is not mainstream. Like, there's a lot to impose, or not impose, there's a lot to attempt to get the point across of without talking over people or without feeling like I'm losing people in the process of explaining why this works, why this doesn't work, or why this could work. It comes from watching a lot of Crucible and playing a lot of Crucible enough to where I could break it down if you have the time to listen, but then I'm not trying to sound like a sweat, or I'm not trying to sound like a Crucible nerd. Which, unfortunately, talking to a lot of kids and adolescents that play this game, it's just a ritual in doing just that adds a nice depressing layer to striving, but we will still strive. So I reached out to LFG, that's looking for group. Website just for helping to find PvP players. This added to the stress heavily because there's so much crap that this now brought me. I was messing up my operations. I saw more people that joined my team and left. 1 second later, I deal with people that had mics and could cooperate, but then see me or my team's KD, then they either insult me or leave, or just leave period, because like we look weak. Or people that just seem to criticize low statistics and yet are surprised at average to great performances. Wow! Or people that turn up who really want to be carried through competitive rather than work with the team because you know you can do better, yet you choose not to because you're the one who's weak. You just sound big. And skill players that might stick around for like maybe a good minute or 2 for a game, but then complain about having a broken back from carrying the team to a win-loss ratio. with that KD efficiency in that one game, apparently, that says the whole KD effectiveness as a whole for the team. Like, the fuck? Then there's these types of fools that are casually more common in many ways. People who just aren't as good as they claim, or what their KD supposedly shows to some degree, yet they criticize all of what you're doing while you're doing it, or point out what you're doing wrong all the time, what the team's doing wrong. And it just causes vast discomfort, and it literally just lowers team morale from the constant bitching. Late at night, early morning. And it's just stop. Like, just stop. It's not that serious. A lot more people left because they lost interest to do the hardcore or harder PvP with my teams because of a lot of constant mixing elements, as I just named, where if it's shifting a lot of the atmosphere in wanting positive people more consistently. Some people even the kids I was working with even started listening to the disbelievers and procrastinators like they were right when they weren't. They were just more indecisive people, not sure about wanting to continue doing competitive. I wanted to encourage them to support themselves and learn how to better yourself, but slowly more people ignored that premise. The condescending players rotating in and out constantly kept putting down newer players rather than helping to build them from their own experiences. Like, I get you need better weapons and armor to have more options, but until some players can get these things, you have to learn to make a little bit stretch as best and as far as you can. I know a lot of players aren't used to using lesser crappy gear to compete with high tier gear and weaponry. Many people forget that you can do these things. Many people actually forget where they come from in a lot of these Destiny settings and how they get started once they quote unquote get good or they get the best crap in the game. It's just common ignorance. You can win the hardest battles with the simplest gear if you know what to look for. I know it's easier said than done, but it is achievable. This game's gridiron is not complicated to understand after a few rounds in the Crucible. Some people I worked with in those weeks were listening about how to expand with lesser known gear to make the most of their gear. That one that didn't also seem to convincingly stick around long enough to leave my LFG team. I come to find out that some of them paid off other players or smurfs to do the grind for them to simplify the process. Like those carrying services you hear about, people that pay $80, $100, $200, $300 to get the work done and carrying them through Crucible, Trials, whatever it is. They literally make this shit look like child's play at a price. Hop on your account and they get it done. Done. Hook them up with the PayPal, Cash App, whatever, done. One of the teams we ran into at one night, it was like in the later heroic categories, there was one or two experiences where we ran into some of these carrying services. Like, we were barely able to get 1 point on the board at all against an almost solid, straight flush ass whipping under 5 minutes. If that. Like, the more depressing aspect of running into carrying services was encountering the same person that I was helping to instruct to learn how to be better at the game like a month, 2 months earlier, only to be destroyed point blank by that same jackass's team that he paid for to carrying to the same rank I literally invested a whole month in showing him how to do it. Just to get my ass kicked and my whole team destroyed by the people he paid to do it for me that makes everything I said look like shit. Like, it's a seriously sad reality among one of the more pitiful online experiences I've had in Destiny, but it is what it is. It almost made me reach a point where I was just like so angry that night I almost broke my controller. Cause I just like, I really just couldn't do this shit. So, all this Destiny 2 crap wasn't easy juggling with the Rainbow Six Siege at that time, because that game came with its own difficulties the way out, and tolerate as well, right? But it was whatever for a long while amidst just being numb to listening to other people's crap day and night, basically, when I got home. And I'm trying to push this out because this is gaming life, and I'm trying to make sure it doesn't transcend into real life, because then that's where you start having the mental stack. Because one starts begetting the other. And it's like, we need you, we need to get your rank up, or you gotta maintain consistently, or there's always a reason why I just want to say something at one point or another, because I just wish the people on Destiny understood the rainbow thing, and I wish the people on Rainbow damn sure understood what the hell's happening on Destiny, because this shit's not fun either way. All I know is that the only reason why I can keep doing both these games is because I just need to shoot at something. Because it's just so frustrating to try and have decency between either or of the efforts come to pass without conflict of interest. Like, do I get angry? Of course I do. I try not to take my anger out on others, but there are people, and so many people, that make that so hard to do because of how they are. I always try to take responsibility for what I can't do, because deep down I know, or sometimes I even feel like it's my fault. Had I known about this sooner, or if I was made aware beforehand, or if I just performed better. I do what I can, knowing that is actually never enough, because my struggle was always being in two places at once, or never truly being aware of all my options. And low-key, I think that's honestly why I stay a lab rat all these years, even though the fruits of said labor vary with the tree planting. If that makes sense. And then the fatigue, I mean, you come home tired, do whatever in the house. I play tired sometimes. I sweat on a game tired until I become a little bit more tired. I kind of sleep like a baby those nights because I actually kind of sweat myself to sleep. And then we move over to another gridiron and kind of sort of rinses and repeats somewhat. Or if I just take a shower, then it just kind of resets. So I stuck to generating a positive vibe for myself and trying to create a positive vibe, because I'm realizing that this is starting to fall back into one of those toxic canisters that I was trying to cast away, but it's starting to infect me again. So I just stuck to trying to create the positive vibes, creating and spreading the positive atmosphere that I'm in, something to thrive in. I don't feel like I'm lacking all the time, where I don't want to bring myself down with a lot of downtrodden and negative thoughts, right? Like, positivity is what I'm about, or it's what I try to be about. Like, I really do try. I keep it hidden from my R6 teams that I was really frustrated and pissed off almost every day. And I kept it hidden that I really didn't want to be here all the time because I needed to rest. But I also needed something to invest my time into because I was just really angry a lot of that time. Hey, gaming, what's going on, bro? Juggling became highly pestilential, but at the same time, this work just won't get itself done. Rainbow can't get itself done. Destiny can't get itself done. As much as I would have my friends help by at least keeping my accounts consistent and would give them the chance, if they so wish, to have the access, this also wasn't an option that I didn't want to explore, because I was also just conscientious about my security and the cyber security, because I just didn't want people having access to my accounts at that time, and then it ends up being a lot of fraudulent claims to success should something happen. So if the juggle was to continue happening, I would just do it by my own hand and just deal and just try and ride this out and kind of space out my interactions in order to mediate growing frustration and anger and avoid complete corrosion. And by corrosion, I mean self-corrosion. I have PS4. Saving up for the 5 maybe, but it's not really, looks like it happened in the near future at the moment. And so the juggling was to just be my own personal hell that I'm to deal with. I didn't want sympathy that I'm not going to get or be understood about, and I didn't just want to hear other people's stories that won't help me in the direct sense, or my resolve, or even vaguely affect my positivity. It's like all about how you see it. It's how it's viewed likely is people seeing a player just bouncing back and forth between games for a cause on Destiny that I'm supposedly not fighting myself. And I just wish that they just had an idea of the mental struggle as well as the physical struggle that comes with the team management here on Destiny, along with personal upkeep, so that way I'm not fucking up my own stuff. The team's fucking up the whole team stuff. The team has self-confidence issues. The team is also listening to jackasses that I'm bringing in that I do have to bring in because I have to trust randoms. And I have to endure the rinse and repeat process of where Destiny goes the further we delve into competitive, when people want to focus on KD over communications and consistency. Is where Destiny Tracker and LFG starts to become my worst enemy instead of my greatest asset. At that time, as much as they wanted to delve in, or the people from Rainbow, I just decided to just keep it all to myself. And basically, I just put on a mask or a facade about the constant torture that this was every day mentally. Just playing it off like it was okay, and I was just joking away in order to feel better at those times. Others did this for me occasionally with a sense of given disbelief at the performance. And did it help? Yes and no. Like, playing it off helped to maintain focus at the cost of disbelief, comical relief here and there. I didn't feel as exhausted or off-putting or of activity, so my mood varied a lot with a lot of my company. Like, time went on, yeah, I was becoming more and more pissed off the more I was playing D2, but I still played it since the anger was kind of going somewhere constructively. Like, the TACT comp teams I created for competitive were all falling through. I had almost disbanded due to the lack of people, which was a growing issue. The loss of passion, the loss of focus, commitment, the players lacking the PvP sense, prioritization, team value, and self-improvement. And then the one kid finally got good, so like all the work I invested in him finally worked. But, okay, this is what happened with this, which is like, it almost led me to almost breaking my controller again, and I almost said, okay, I want to fuck this shit again. So the one kid, right, it was Cameron 11. I invested much of my time into as follows. So the one kid, I invested a lot of my time into Cameron in order to have him kind of like surpass me in PvP, so that way I got somebody reliable in my corner, so if I can't get it done or if I start fucking up, then okay, the kid's got my back, because he's actually cognizant of Destiny mechanics now. He's seen the system enough time in order to get it done. He actually succeeded in surpassing a lot of my expectation to be really good, like what we both wanted. And then he just left randomly, like a dickish ingrate, for some Minecraft streaming of all things. Like, I can't even tell you how pissed off I was. And then he's like, oh, I didn't really care about D2 that much, I just wanted to have fun being in the clan, or so I'm told. Hell to the no. That shit was so fucking stupid. Like, it's not fine. Like, it's fine to play for fun, that's the point, yes. But leaving out of nowhere and just saying nothing about this, that you want to just go to Minecraft, that's not fine. I hate that shit. It's a lack of concern, awareness, and fellow consideration. Damn, thinking about that again now, honestly, just... you can add me, friend. If you need me for anything in particular, you can probably go on ahead and reach that thing. And if I have the game installed at that point, I can probably reinstall it and play. I'm doing the documentary at the moment. But feel free to definitely sit and chill and enjoy yourself. You can add me if you wish. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, just let me know. So, nights were leading into the next. My nights were getting shot straight to hell in a hand basket with a nice little bow on it. One of the past contacts I had, now a late night contact at times, wanted to help me meet this friend of his that used to be a Trials competitor. It was around 3 a.m. one night. Yeah, I actually do stay up that late doing this. I actually become a rather constructive night owl for unhealthy reasons. Well, it was around 3 a.m. one night, right? It kept going up and down. It was my my ranking tier in comp. It was going around heroic 2 like 12, 13 damn times, and each loss was just setting me back from staying in heroic tier. So being here and staying here was key, even if for a little bit. Because it was literally like 1 or 2 ranks away from where I wanted to be at, and didn't want to risk it in a fatigued mood. So the guy got off work recently and was getting on, so there was a chance that I could meet the backup I needed for this last push from heroic into Fabled, because what I want is to get to Fabled. That was at that time, was to get to Fabled. So I decided to make some tea, stay up for a little bit longer with the dude. I was staying up with I think his name was, what did I write here? His name was Frenzy. His name was Frenzy AC. That was him that I was playing with, and then his friend was a Japanese American player that came in. His new face popped up in the chat. His name was Ahito. He's a friend of his. He's a Japanese American player. He was a Warlock main. Ahito, it was a very sociable player. We had like a pretty lengthy conversation in the morning and bounced a lot of ideas about the maps, the community, the game DLCs at that point. Anthem supposedly being a huge cloud over Destiny, even though Anthem died very early in its lifespan. And like it went on for a while about a lot of sci-fi gaming and the atmosphere of the games itself. Like low-key, talking with this dude and playing with him, I had a feeling this was the dude he was talking about. And it makes sense when I see how well that I clicked with him, casually playing through competitive. And before I knew it, like we actually got it done that same night. We were a 3-man squad. AC Frenzy, myself, and this Ahito guy, and we were able to vastly succeed in the home stretch in these closing competitive sessions. Like, that guy appeared at the most weird-ass hour when he had time, yeah. But this guy really delivered on what was promised, exactly as my friend said, and we all did our part to succeed here. It was like 4 a.m., but everything was finished. I couldn't thank him enough, because like having good backup and good communications for a good team was everything I had wanted, and it was harder than I could have ever possibly imagined. It was harder than it needed to be with everything else having fell apart. It's enough to break a person down. Like, I got the gear, I got my tools, and I just took a long ass break from Destiny 2 competitive. Because that whole grind to get something done that was so easy, as I'm told, was like the biggest aneurysm I've had in competitive gaming in many years. To do something so pathetically simple. Make it make sense. Okay. break real quick and take a drink, and then I'm gonna go ahead and keep going. If any of you guys have any questions or comments or concerns, let me know, and I can go ahead and I can answer them real quick while I'm here.
What you sipping on right now, Rod?
Some lemonade.
Little lemonade. Alright. Little vodka lamb. I can dig it. I'm just kidding. You don't drink.
Oh, I wish. That would keep me up.
I was gonna say you might need a little vodka lamb. This story is pretty intense, man. Come on, so.
Okay, so to resume here, so during this break time, I logged into D2 here and there because it was basically like post burnout, because I burnt out like a few times at that point. I just kind of played through it or played it off, just to check in and do dailies, but not so much to do quests and force it along. Otherwise, it would just be like a complete burnout. Let's see. I had no real purpose at that time to be there aside from just, yeah, like I said, restocking on materials, the quests, the hoarding of the coins, and stocking up on my resources. It was around that time, after the long break, I was pumped more. I was pumping more of my interest into playing catch up on Rainbow Six Siege and Dragon Ball FighterZ when I first started playing those games. When I discontinued my juggling, or burning the candle at both ends, if you will, the hour of gameplay here had naturally caused a massive divide and setback on the other platforms because of the lack of training or consistently, naturally as it would. So during this time, or brief times, Flint and a few people he introduced me to would occasionally invite me to raid parties and menageries and activities and whatnot, an experienced raiding team. Those few new faces including, and this goes back to what I was talking about, this is when I first met Bubba and his wife Lupovane, and the game that the corporation that they founded on Destiny called the GigglesCorp Incorporated. And it introduced a nice slice of life that I just hadn't had in a while. And Flint, if you're out there, thank you for introducing me to Bubba and Loopy. That really changed a lot of my life in gaming on Destiny. And those are two really sweet people. Good family that they got, and good family of gamers that they house and have. It's like a nice little online family. And with Shock, Deadshot, Loopy, Bubba, Foxfires. It's good support and camaraderie between that whole group. And the thing about it is that it's a whole group of leaders, because all of them communicate together as well as they do individually with other people's teams. Like, these are actually person type people. We did a lot of great raiding activities in the menagerie through the months. It was kind of like an online rendezvous from time to time. I actually had time to do this, pick up on how to learn the menagerie more as we did each thing, and even do the raids and learn the raids. Raiding used to be hard or feel difficult, and this is because I was put in a lot of situations where I had to recollect everything or learn on the spot and just learn from a lot of non-existent past experiences. But with Loopy and Bubba, I just never felt out of place or unwanted or undercut or undervalued. A lot of raiding experiences I felt I was highly lacking was helped with a lot from spending my time with these guys as much as I did. And I'm thankful that I took this detour from comp to delve into PvE and the raiding PvE aspect more. It's paid off more in the later years of Destiny. Remember what the previous raiding groups I used to vaguely be around through the Leviathan raid. I remember from one time, and me and Loopy talked about that one of these points. I remember after the kid was born. These were with Lightning X and his clanning familiars, Bullet Hunter and Trap Daddy, from that that whole Destiny raiding clan. Like, I was far from like the best raider to game with. I was not the most consistent at all. I can be honest with myself. I'm a gradual learner of raid mechanics and their specific formulas. Lightning's roommate was the co-founder of AGD, It was an agreeable and rather sociable young woman to raid under, as I learned a fair amount of raiding formula. She was a lot less stressed out over time, and she was less chatty, a bit more accommodating at different play styles or methods that was just different. Could have been done. I could have talked with Cheyenne over Lightning over a lot of the time and be stuck with that, because Lightning, whenever it is that like raid parties fall apart, he usually throws like these little mini tantrums. I was like, damn. So like, I mean, it's got to go somewhere, but damn. Like we go all this way to get to the checkpoint. Checkpoint's lost because you got to replace said person, and now the frustration and complications of organizing the next phase begin because it's not the same people you came in with. And it just mounts very easily with him. Lightning is very, very easy to ruffle his feathers. I'm not a ruffler, I'm just happen to be the other one on the side looking. And being honest with myself, and I was honestly envious of how successful Bubba and Loopy's private community was compared to mine. Because a part of me felt jealous of Bubba for a time because of how usually organized, cooperative, and structured all of his friends and all of those in his circle are in comparison to my own. Like past and present together, if you compare TACT to GigglesCorp, like TACT's been around for many years now compared to GigglesCorp, but it's barely able to hold on each year. Not to mention past group ideas offered with the continued declination of interest, involvement, engagement, social interaction, and a divided response. There's like a world's difference between GigglesCorp and TACT for the same value that he gained, where I feel like I lost along the way. And it was just something that I just felt like I was jealous of from him, even though I probably didn't have anything to be jealous about. Like, while my kingdom crumbles slowly, whereas theirs does expand slowly over time, we're welcoming of many newer faces, regardless of the given trial and error, to keep them around, or stumbling blocks along the way of our own social dealings online. Like, you sort out the good from the bad, and tackle each day as it passes with new challenges. So, alright, click in here. So, November 2019. So I had this random interaction with on Bungie.net, meeting a player from one of True Vanguard streams, right? It was after his Facebook conversation from Twitch earlier September 2019. I was still in the aftermath of recovering from my break from Destiny 2. I needed this, and I wasn't in the mood to really do any more here. The season of opulence was ending soon, with the advent of Shadowkeep's DLC beginning. I decided to just sit and meet people here. I came across his friends list, so I decided to sit there and read. It's one of those nights when I'm just sitting and skimming people's community listings that I know. It's a secret shame. I saw a link here for Trials of Osiris' online community. This was back with, in case you guys are wondering with this checkpoint, this is back when PlayStation Communities was a thing on PlayStation before it was discontinued on PlayStation 4. This is where you could actually come and go on communities, and it was a lot more socially accurate than what Discord could ever try to mimic. But hey, PS5. I saw a link here for Trials of Osiris' online community. I decided to look into it and see where it goes, okay? It had a nice vibe to it at first. Clearly Trials was a pastime that, while I was almost always kicked out of in those years, I had respected because only the best could be there or survive in that environment. I was denied entry at first, then later on I was messaged about what my glory rank is before joining. I didn't reply to it. I played it off like I was interested, but I really wasn't. I didn't care about that or how that community really worked. Because the Trials community is just, Trials of Osiris compared to Trial of the Nine. Trials of Osiris is a game where people see themselves as superior people compared to others based on varying levels of playtime and KD consistency. It's like they live and die by destinytracker.com. Which the link for that will be in the description of the video, so you can actually see what it is if you guys want to see things, or hell, just see the history of any friends, foe, or even yourself, and just see how much time you probably invested in the gameplay. So players always posted about seeking teams. Oh wait, I skipped a line. Hang on. So then it happened that next day, or within the next couple of days, it just randomly happened. Suddenly, I was accepted in the Trials community. Given it had standards to its existence, which like the rules right up at the top for some reason. I didn't really say anything to said people, so I wondered how the recognition even went through to join the community. The text started flying across my screen with some excess handful of messages that week. I took time to read them while I was still on Xenoverse a lot of the time, grinding for the expert missions. A lot of these players were requesting some aid here and there for the exotic quests, the raid on D1 and D2, the menagerie, clan recruitment, and the occasional level boosting, and the one or two carrying service offers, where it's like, if you guys need anything, just hit me up, DM me, and then you have the emojis or emote for whatever the buck sign is with the dollars. So I find it interesting where I see these things as like you're pitching the sales offer, but you don't just bluntly say what you mean. Like, I'm pretty sure the community will allow it since there's literally a section there for doing that anyways. It's like you're trying to be like giving a hand job under the table and pause. A number of players were posting about their businesses for a lot of PvP stuff. Irregular to me to see so many posts about one particular game that can be a norm. An opportunistic idea then sparked during my Xenoverse training. I thought about what I want to do while I'm here. And so in a serious moment, I thought on both what I want to do here in Osiris community, as well as in continuing to still be associated with Destiny after a lot of friends made through the past journey on the game and my past mistreatments in the comp scene together, either still here or they're gone, or we just move into the next chapters. Like, do I want to continue doing this? Am I going to build again? Like, securing the last checkpoint literally, like, cost me everything. Not financially, but mentally. And cost me the team. Because the main people that were on the team just stopped playing Destiny at that time, so I would literally have to recruit and find again, which means that the cycle begins again. And I wasn't ready for that. This has to mean something. Like, any more money dumped into the game, any more interest in a game I'm almost going to be undervalued in, or fighting more losing battles than winning successful ones, this needs to be about me. It has to be something meaningful, something I can walk away from with contentment about the video game. On a side note, this was a discovery that I would come across. I asked how many people stumbled across this community or had joined it. So I asked a couple people casually, especially those that were asking for casuals and Iron Banner and shit. So my guess is that he took a look at the glory ranking at that time, or over his history stamps, and that was the accepting pass, or else reviewed my stats on TRN, or the tracker, stat tracker network, then gave me the acceptance into the community. Like general stats, I'm guessing, as in KD ratio, solo ratio, as opposed to team ratio. Solos, weapon use, accuracy, the works. Like, I can safely assume in my own contemplation that most of the players here that may engage in activity are of a similar statistical background, at the least, and then it spreads out from there to the varying experiences of the many. So, like, I have a lot of weapons and armor pieces I saw, barring the handful, either rare to see or else no one longer using them, or else they're no longer existent by the game standards. I played games with a lot of different players all over the world between Trials of the Nine and Iron Banner. I played through every presented Nightfall before Shadowkeep's launch, at times with the wrong elements on purpose, to not only train myself in taking punishment, but also challenging myself on a daily survival rate. I did a lot of cool but likely dumb shit through my Destiny runs, but it meant something at those times when I did it. Just to see how much I could do if you match up. If you have poor mismatch, then how do you make the most of it? Okay, and then I thought about this. Okay, so I thought about going for Legend. That's the highest rank of competitive gameplay in base competitive Crucible, this Legendary status. I took it into consideration, the level of commitment to want to go through with that, and the easily foreseen setbacks that can happen along the way. It's way more irritating and stressful than what was endured to reach Fable in the preceding season. At this time, a bookmark was about 3 months ago and some change. Like, it's the thinking of all that crap that can or will go wrong that deterred wanting to continue that I'm thinking about right now, because I know my luck. I know the people that I want to hang around, but it's the people that I end up with. And the shit that will go wrong, because that's life on this shitty platform. Plus, I can't really get a straightforward answer for friends to fuel a solid decision, because the few that are listening or aware of this dilemma that I had and have don't know what my intentions are or what I feel I should or shouldn't be here anyways, not knowing or having awareness to past activities. Again, this being something that only I can know for myself and that I have to figure out. I mean, that's always helpful, I guess, and I'm just saying that sarcastically. It adds inputs to my goals that would actually be helpful to sort out the constant beehive that is my thinking when I do anything I want to do. So around this time, I reopened my 1v1 panel in Destiny. Like, there hasn't been any issue with my panel here compared to previous communities where I sought to have the 1v1 outline, where in terms of competing heavily on a video game, I want to open up the one-on-one premise, so that way I can just 1v1 players over doing team-based battles. That way I can have a better sense of more accurate aiming and sharpening my reaction time. Like, 1v1 projects are always beneficial to the competitive end. Eventually, I made up my mind in that this was to be more about me and just take the selfish approach. As selfish as that is, and it internally became, I know it's selfish, but I just didn't care. I was just making sure that my investment of time and effort is secure for my interests. My mind was made up. This was my project, and this was final. And I was just gonna gamble probably a past horror. I'm gonna slowly get my levels up, deviate my time between my character classes now to gain a better competitive sense of the classes and their options. Do these 1v1s as time and returning interest allow to help better myself. Study all the maps in rotation, and then strive for Legend. Just try to make this hobby. So we kind of sort of delve back into ritualistic gameplay, and then we also go back into labbing. Which, honestly, the 1v1s that I had across Destiny was basically my labbing. It was my competitive labbing, which I was also thankful for a lot of those that I did win and lose, or learn a lot about how to be a better guardian and gamer for the gridiron than what I calced I could do at that time and in those matches. So first things first, in coming back from the break was just making sure I could just get my health and my thinking back on track to a competent level. A place where I can feel fine going back into this field and just working on myself. Because working yourself to the bone in a silent struggle is just maddening. To where you, the person, are just exhausted or fed up with everything and everybody. In that sense, like, the body can do but so much to keep up with the mind. You can have but only so much to basically rely on or to help basically on a team, in team play, when you must do it yourself. And there are times where you know you must do it all yourself. You know this, but you also have to contradict it and give the team a chance. Like, this is something that will be awesome to have under my belt. If I can pull it off. Or at least to see if I can pull off such a towering feat. Going toe-to-toe with likely bigger monsters. Pouring their lives into PvP's general existence and walking away from it. Like, I know the shitty luck with people. Like, the continued business and the lack thereof in the gaming communities, it still gnaws at me. I know the awful timing people have about anything or to anyone they care about. I know I have as much dedication to this as I had working towards Plat 3 on Rainbow and my efforts in getting back to Gold tier to be as close as possible to that end. The stress, the irritation, the resolve, the dedication, the depressing realism of such equally parallel variables in, again, getting a team. Like, this is not something I can brag about as much as I would want to. Nobody will... It's my thought that I just hope nobody has to go through a journey like this, or can be accepting of the perspective that I bring in seeing a competent Destiny team, or a competent competitive gaming team anyways. I believe that a silent victory here was what I want. Like, so long as I do this for me and my own self-benefit later on. So in my head, I wanted to be among the few players who actually worked their ass off to achieve that plateau of extreme competitive accomplishment in achieving legend. But I don't want to pay anybody to do it for me. It defeats the entire purpose of accomplishing the feat. And I do not have the right to brag about it. Or to just have sole claim of it, because it was never mine. While I run the show and can hold my own to a degree, I know just getting a team assembled for the higher level of competitive aspect for actual cooperation is the first step back into hell itself. Before worrying about the monsters beyond the gate, we gotta figure out how to get the people to get to the gate. Next, the thing was slowly getting myself hyped up to want to do this, as I was still drained from enduring the grind of Fabled and in some sense procrastinating to return to D2, not only for fear of idiotic repetition and seeking my specific structure, or being questioned needlessly, but also to finish up the other projects I already chose to be committed to elsewhere in order to expand interests and ideas for other things. Like, I had my opportunity to leave for a time, so that's what I did. It caused me to be falling vastly behind, but I'd be willing to pay that price again for sweet relief and a reprieve from constructiveness that begets depression. Check mark. So, March 2020. This is the Trials of Osiris community. This was in Season of the Worthy. This was the season debut of Trials of Osiris' return back in March 2020. This is after the 4-year hiatus Trials had from D1. They brought it back into D2 for the first time. So hold on, hold that thought, chat. I'm gonna go ahead and take a drink. Ad's gonna go real quick, so hang on.
big man?
So I can space these ads out. Yeah, I'm holding up alright. Doing pretty good. Just spacing all this out just more or less like how I thought.
Oh, you unload this twist player? Do it. You won't. Fucking bitch.
Alright. Alright, ads should be done now. So,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
resume. So, Trials of Osiris community, right? This is March 2020. So, we're already right at the dawn of the lockdown pre-pandemic. So, Season of the Worthy. That was February's balance patch that had happened. But February's balance patch happened from Season of the Dawn into its closure this current season. That's what I want to say. The Season of the Worthy began, and with it Trials of Osiris graced the stage of Destiny as the pinnacle PvP activity once more, since the closing, retiring run of Destiny 1 back in 2016. The season sparked a very old and strong heat inside me to bring something full circle that was personal to me about being included with Trials. The season started not only the cycle of completing a dream I sought to achieve, greatness beyond the hereafter from years ago, but also bringing years of that competitive training to a head, and to have a chance to redeem myself for the lack of skill and consistency playing at that pinnacle top level event years ago when it was first introduced to me. One thing I didn't need repeated from the original Trials into the modern day Trials was being turned away because of stupid reasoning or idiotic rationale that has a vocal platform over common sense. An obvious misconception there, as I'd see the latter of my own accord to a depthly toxic extent. Reasons like I couldn't be productive vocally for the team, or because I sound black, or ignorant, or am supposed to act, or sound a certain way, or I'm expecting to do well right away at the cost of being kicked off the team either way. It's a constant lose-lose situation, even when it's already known that you didn't have the experience to begin with, but is gaining what you can as you go, right? Like, in addition to players in these online realms that can easily get away with racism or online bullying because there's very little penalty enforced to punish them for such open remarks and acts and antics. Much of the frustration from that time, I just kept it to myself as it never went away or would never really be better. Filing complaints to Bungie.net and LFG just never went away or never went anywhere. Looking for better is a constant problem, as there's usually worse to me over better. I sought my friends list to create something with known entities before reacting or reaching out to strangers. Looking back at it now, thinking people from my friends list was actually going to be willing to help in a pinnacle PvP outing was easily one of the stupidest ideas I attempted, to settle on desperation like a fool. Logical? Maybe. Stupid? Absolutely. Rewarding? Actually debatable. Like, if the past experiences in full of helping out gamers once upon a time with quests, exotic quests and whatnot for expected PvP favors in return, didn't tell me how much selfish Destiny players were, then why should it be any different now just because it's a different atmosphere in another era of the same Destiny relevant community? So, I sought the PvP goers only. The PvE procrastinators once upon a time were already purged or blocked, so I decided to go into traits of the past me and just remove casual players at this time. but I was given mixed responses that ended up in a lot of no-shows. Everyone but perhaps the few that did actually state they weren't down for massive competitive PvP action. While I was hopeful for something to work out, I was already mentally prepared to be disappointed, as it's the more realistic response to end result of being or asking for help in Destiny. I mean, you either get it or you don't. Simple as that. You either get help or you don't. Procrastination is just a drawn out or pending no, to be honest. All these years of waiting, practicing my Guardian's craft in my own image, my loyalty and embedded PvP ritual, muscle memory, as well as the drive to push myself more to meet a challenge on the horizon, accepting possibly a deep end that I couldn't come back from. Upon falling into this sanctuary of strangers, this trial community now buzzing with more business for the common competitor and profiter equally. This was my reward. And so I'll link it in the chat for the trial stuff if I can find it. Here we go. This was the D2 rant about it being just a living nightmare that I paid for. This was also something that you'll see in old videos for True Vanguard and Rick Kakis. So my reward was simply put, so I get booted from fire teams before joining the party or after my first performance, a forced total social ostracism at the seasonal start, gradual seclusion I withdrew into months of work across these scenes, striving for glory's legend tier, carrying the occasional random while I'm going through free of charge because it's a free teammate to boot, began to unravel and fully just be purged. I'm judged in advance in social trials communities, constantly based on KD, not competence of the past 5 years of competitive gameplay. You're ignored or overlooked in LFG because of LFG response via destinytracker.com and the official Trials of Osiris community link because of statistics. I joined Aztec Gaming, Rick Kakis's, and Kami Cakes' online gaming communities to have much healthier results, only to also be overlooked there by the communities. Moderators being the only ones and the only loving people there I met, of which I want to continue talking with and can socialize with, but I can't play with them or ask for their more competent help because they're on PC and not console. And then LFG posts update each weekend, but they stay silent each weekend. I can't ever find my own team. I have to literally wait to be discovered to be allowed to join a team, which happens like 3-4 hours later. The few okay players or streamers doing freebies for trials and competitors, the ones not asking to be paid via debit, PayPal, whatever the fuck, to be on your team, a stand-in carry, or even talk to you, they barely talk as it is, or they just duck the posts, or posts of searching for teams. Then they post their own shit right below hand. Okay, I have a mic, competent PvP presence, or what, if the KD isn't 1.4 or 1.5, then nobody's ever interested to work with you, or whatever. an illusionary standard of statistics for these communities on Trials that supersede commonsensical expectation to believe numbers on a board can't change over time. Like, this is the actual state of being. Your KD is here on the site, which means that you should be dropping kills here. Or if your KD is garbage, then that means that you shouldn't be able to do a damn thing and I have to carry you. That's not the case. That is never going to be the case at first sight. Like, when you go into these trial games just to get shit on, you lose KD. Your KD statistics go down vastly the more you lose. And people never stop to think that it's the team and not the player. That's why I'm actually thankful in the later stages of Trials' lifespan that they took the initiative to do solo skill-based matchmaking. So that way it's literally 3 randoms that all match up together to play the match against other dudes, also 3 randoms that are just matching up magically. I'm so thankful they did that shit. Because it is not good for the game's lifespan to constantly just gatekeep opportunity to do trials because you only want to play with good people and nobody else, when nobody else matters more than good people, because that's how the game's lifespan is even supposed to operate. Even at the highest levels of Destiny comp. But randoms might DM me to start a potential Trials run, but they never return the messages from these competitive communities. In my opinion, it's like likely having found better players to go into Trials with. And it's like it's literally survival of the fittest. Physically, mentally, verbally, digitally, as I am painfully finding out, the more I interact with Trials of Osiris and its inhabitants of past Trials people, or those that have been to the Lighthouse, and the even more frustrating flawlesses. All these wonderful gifts and headaches of the Trials community almost seem like a routine were just given to me in means of a daily, weekly spitting in my face that was just be challenged, as I kept seeking my place in the Trials community by making my stand to be heard. Change was always around the corner, sure, but for who? And when? Change for me was not happening. Like, sure, I had a stats record that showing me having more than enough experience to qualify to be out here than most, or mostly anyone here, already piggybacking off others succeeding or ahead of the pack. None of it matters. Like, I made the pain and constant disappointment of interacting with fellow online guardians in those outlets and in my outlets, which I drew power from, to heavily focus and single out my enemies. Then I see select players here and there whom I had systematically helped, or even previously carried, in Fabled and Mythic in past seasons this year, and here. More so those that I feel owe me for the inconvenient calls or requests of needing my services when no one else would put up, or even put up with them or help them. I summon them, and then they aren't as reluctant to answer or ping or want to be on my Trials team to give it a shot. Like, none of those past productive deeds matter, apparently. And this is completely different, or this is supposedly different from competitive. And while being a competitive pinnacle itself, it's different from the way competitive is in terms of the thinking, even though in terms of these being 2 different pinnacles, they play exactly the same, with Trials having the reward system to it that's more visually satisfying and appealing as opposed to competitive to legend. It's more satisfying with competitive Trials from 0 to flawless, or to the 0 to the Lighthouse, and then possibly a flawless. So the way to think coordinate, react, or commit is with higher risk and reward to it without question. So why is an effective team potentially questioned, however? It's not, it's very easy. Like, it's not interested, or else it's found by better players at a price to pay. Like, easily put, this was a good example of past achievements done in the game, in the community, for people and with people that aren't considered or thought of as a contributable payback or return to PvP pay upon calling. Just being meaningless compared to numbers on a screen that apparently mean everything in these communities. The constant silence for half an afternoon or posting around my open post, and the blunt topics I posted about literally, it tells me easily that the social gamers are just checking stats to see if it's worth the time to begin a conversation that leads to playing the current pastime together, which you avoid talking to if they're weak in your eyes, I presume? Or if the KD doesn't match the way they talk to you, or the way that they want to do trials, like you're having a vague, illusionary expectation of the person before you even meet them. Oh, in the face of such ignorant folly. Like, though all my moves have no reward now, other than to leave, I just made my next place. So, I'm just going ahead and just make my next play. So, I chose to take chances on strangers. Here, more than the silently active people on my friends list. It's less of an emotional dice roll this way. This is one of those times where you have to invest in the randoms. Eventually you might come across that lone wolf random that actually might know what the hell he's doing, even if he doesn't have a mic. It's like a killer ghost. Ugh. So, imagine making your rounds on Bungie, or the community's social page, to find people each week, but it stays silent to you. You have a mic. You have a 1.2 KD at minimum. Like, what's my KD right now? It's, fuck, I'm not wearing the banner. Alright, anyway. Like, you have a 1.2 KD at minimum. That's so important, provided that you only play Destiny 2 on days where you don't have an issue with performance. Because the problem that people in the Trials community don't understand is that the only reason why people have high KDs is because it comes with consistency to performance, not consistency to play. Like, there are going to be some days where you feel like shit, that KD drops way the fuck down. There are times where you play good, hey, that KD goes up. And there are some times where if you're in lobbies, the KD is just stagnant. You'll either do good, you'll do crappy, or you'll drop kills but not win. My team request posts is the only posts that are like sitting there for like 1 or 2 hours maybe. Meanwhile, other Guardians have consistent communications or at pings to literally the same thing I'm requesting actively. I even have my own stats up in the background, so if I'm sitting here doing this, I want to see what they see. What's so insignificant about my stats compared to other people's stats? Which I'm also sitting and checking myself when I see people literally scrolling over my name to talk to somebody ahead of me, or the jackass that has a shittier KD than me because I'm looking at it on my screen and you're engaging with him. Favoritism much, my guy? Like, I can't help it but take it extremely personally when you're bluntly ignored daily with these things to go to comp to other and the opportunities given other players less experienced than you because of numbers on a screen. Numbers can lie at any time on social spaces. People can be carried through events and the competitive gatherings having the fakest stats on the website because, hey, in the moment, you want the bodies here shooting and not the people here communicating. Hell, people are probably being carried in Trials of Osiris right now as I'm sitting here talking about it. Like, the few players that do come through to engage have never been in the arena long enough to gain experience, or else it's their first time. Either way, it results in death of the player, and eventually the team, because you never understand why you lost, only where you lost. It's always a quick fix, it's never a permanent solution. Okay, next we go over here. Alright, bookmark it. So, Season of the Undying, right? The effort through Trials of Osiris resume, and I get closer to tasting a Lighthouse run. Disappointed to only taste the pain in the back tooth, or too pointy. Literally the tooth in the back left of my jaw. Those mounting weekly team requests, alright, that lead to a lot more resentment building up slowly but surely, right? And why was this feeling here? Revenge? Somewhat. Humiliation? No, but those who wear the Trials badges of honor, I hated with a burning passion. Flawless seal. That flawless seal literally was the main thing driving me, because I hated it that much that it drove me to want it. I hated it with a burning passion to see suffering that I'm not wanting to be vocal or just in this breathing space half the time, when anyone can just tell me yes or no and then move on like I wasn't doing with the next person. Trials wasn't active in Season of the Undying. What was the season around there that it was active in? Because I was trying to go back here in order to find my dates in order to figure out which season that was. So later on, much of this was reprimanded into a twist of irony not linked to my exploits. Thankfully, all the same, that I wouldn't embrace in the next seasons. There was a couple of bad runs and experiences that, too many and some unkind words, I probably could have rethought better. Instead of sounding more prejudiced and aggressive than it did out of anger, it led to a case or something being held against me in the official Trials PSN community by several people. The Trials moderators was wanting to investigate on grounds of some stupid-ass poor sportsmanship. It's an argument that started from being blamed that I suck when actually your aim was off the mark. Mr. I've been to the Lighthouse and back, so I got this. No, you got these nuts dragged on your helmet from one too many fuck-ups of poor positioning. But rather than own up to it, it's just easy to blame the lowest KD in the party for not doing anything, yet somehow still broke even on the board tally. Wow. Then someone else wanted to investigate me about lying about my stat tracker KD, or so boosting essentially, stat boosting. Like, I can't lie about what dozens of like-minded competitors do to squad up here if all the Trials people here is doing is just checking global stats of the first person that says something or wants to engage. Hey, do you want to party up? Like, hell, it's like a poor son of a bitch is all you can be, or that you end up becoming or teaming up with, honestly, just to prove a ratio is what you see and not what you get. And then I thought to myself, alright, all these trial runs and failed runs to try and get to the Lighthouse, it brought to question the systemic POV of skill and what the actual acquisition of skill is. And what do you see? What is it? What do you see in these things? Like, what are the teams in these communities trying to get from skill? Like, was Trials and general PvP that much different? How does a player improve to be able to reach out to such a point of pinnacle reach if suppression is the constant roadblock? Since it couldn't be reported effectively but respectively challenged, since it's my word against theirs with a more in-depth light shed that I explained to those mods, I'd sooner just chalk it up to stupid, painful shit that I would just suck it up and keep going with my travels. And if I'm thought ill of in that community, then fine, fuck them. I'm still going to be here in order to keep doing what I'm not doing, apparently. And just being blamed for it since everybody else wants to play the blame game instead of accept the fact that you suck because you can't do your job right. And you want to just take it out on me because I'm still getting the experience that I don't have. You have it, but you're not applying it. During this time, this kind of sort of also fell into another ritual where, okay, I kind of take my anger out on Crucible and Gambit in those nights. And it kind of just felt nice to just play with nobody else and just do my own thing, stack bodies, till I just got bored of comp or whatever. I gotta probably clean another sticky controller or whatever the hell, because it just stays that way. The end of that season, I arrived back at a Mythic 2 ranking, because I juggled playing competitive and Trials during that season. So that way I could just stay active, but try to not get burnt out even though I low-key was reaching that point again. And then around the end of that season I reached the Mythic 2 rank and I'm just like, finally, for fuck's sake, I could be back in the promised lands of the higher level comp outline and try to learn the continued missing link in my own game plans to keep this and try to get to Legend, even if it's not going to be that long that I'd be here. And none of these sweaty losers were going to stop me from participating in these games and even in Trials, so that way I can just do my best and no one here would just tell me otherwise, that I have to start over every time. As much as I won't actively admit it, it was just another element where I felt like I was kind of just mentally sinking, and again, I'm trying to grind and delve for the wrong reasons, but I just can't allow this to keep suppressing my advance. And it's like I have to just keep playing through the negativity in order to hopefully think there's a positive, as negatively idiotic as that sounds. The problem growing more at this time was the mental strain and keep up of social networking with these communities, then having a sense of decency with other competitors in these Trials communities being a constant aneurysm. People really think that stats mattered in this game at the highest, like, they want to believe that this matters so much like it's COD or Battlefield, and it's like it's constantly talking to potatoes about how generally pointless it is as a whole. Around the same time, this was around the breaching success I had on Rainbow Six Siege with the team I had at that point, which was a lot more construct. That was the team I had with Subtitly and D-Rob and a few of our friends, as well as with Dragon Ball Fighters and what I was working with there and trying to start in the early scene over there with Anti-Venom and Zero May Cry when I was still on good terms with those people. That's a whole other thing for with Dragon Ball for another live stream outline. So around this time, the pandemic and the lockdown had already taken effect around this 2020-ish sitting. I couldn't ping where it was in the year, so I just got to go by points that I know. So with Siege, then DBFZ rank, then here to Destiny sometime late at night, and then I kind of grind Destiny until like what, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, wasn't I usually up like around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning somewhere, still doing this stuff? Somewhere around there. So over Season of the Worthy and either the season afterwards or the months that ensued afterwards. So nothing overly productive had happened through this particular era's next impending phase. It's just grinding the game and going through the motions. I succeeded to a degree in becoming a designated Sherpa to a few gaming clans for whatever it was worth, and that's fine. Into a couple of installments down the road for raids and some checkpoints that I took months in trying to study, mainly just to the Leviathan in order to attempt to do, or at least competently explain So around this time, so let's skip to, let me pop this here. So let's skip to around early March or April area is where a lot of this next stuff happened. So this was around the time when the PSN communities started going away. This is when they were, actually no, it's not when they're going away, this is when they were removed. This is reportedly due to the rising usage of subscription-based streaming services on the consoles. However, fans would still be able to access the content they already purchased with on-demand playback. Basically, around this time, PS5 was trying to be more of a thing. They no longer supported the PS4 console in disregard for keeping PlayStation communities, because PS5 is a thing. So Sony takes away something established safely to incorporate something newer with a different risk to it. And that's when they incorporated basically the Discord that you can have with PlayStation 5, which was to be the social equivalent they're adding to what they're removing. So around these times, I'll just go over just key things that have happened throughout this point. So note 1. So I started getting more involved with the remaining people around the Dragon Ball social spaces. That was when I first met with Arius, Maze Traps, and Finesse or Oxy from a lot of the kooky voice chat party matches over the months. Alright, note 2. During trying to train for the next couple of competitive runs that I had, then there was this Xenoverse 2 side thing that had happened. It was also filled with a couple of people that I don't know here on Destiny, but also somehow played Xenoverse 2 for some reason. So, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and just look at this chat group anyways. So the Xenoverse 2 side of things was long forgotten because I honestly quit competing on that game before the whole era of mods and hackers and shit. And I was invited to this social hub area that was a community party and some VC chat called Xeno Strong, or whatever the hell they call it. It was some new XP2 community. It derived from a past chat made by a past Xenoverse competitor years back I used to play a lot with. It was called Goku the Legend. The point is that this newer chat had mirrored his same chat, but with less moderative control and a more of a power grab perspective to its structure. I predicted that chat honestly would die a few months into its engagement, if only if it's full of cockstrokers and not conversationalists. Point 3. The Destiny forums began to structurally split up between raiders and competitors heavily based on past reliable social dealings. Not really any sense of guardian unity. It was more so just like unveiling a whole rug of past dramatic junk through the site that people weren't tactful about leaving it be for some reason. The heated discussions took me back to the days of 2014, 2015 game facts, and found a lot of that shit kind of hilarious. Note 4. So the official Trials PlayStation community, like 2 or 3 of these things just merged into one thing and it shifted over to Discord. They began removing names and also re-adding the sorting system for a lot of key players returning to the mix. The LFG section, the Raider LFG section, the section for carrying services, you name it that would be useful for D2 activities. So around that time, the moderators chose to remove penalties from marked players to relocate them as indicators in the Discord for Trials of Osiris community and those and over there, so that way it funnels those same players over there to ID troublemakers, or who they thought was it. This wasn't worth dealing with another layer of bullshit from the official Trials community if I really sought to have continued engagement, which as of now I really wasn't certain of one way or the other. I saw this as an opportunity to forcibly give myself a clean slate in the later era of D2, since I can't cooperatively speak with any of them without some type of pushback. Like you're really convinced of this imagery when I'm seeking to show you elsewise, not just tell you. So I kind of sort of slipped out the back door, so to speak, and I left chat amidst the transitioning process so I could kind of quote-unquote be lost in the system. Gives them more work in trying to track me down. I also low-key screenshotted the names of players I had bad experiences with and my DMs with some people, and mesh them to myself. That way I can have them on hand, so in case shit in the future happens, I already have my own personal identifications of who they are and when I met them in this community. Next few days, I'd just be mute online in order to assure I delete a lot of these names, because I also had to add some people from the Trials community in order to play them or add them or invite them, and I want to make sure I delete according to who. I need to make sure I'm accordingly deleting everybody that I met in Trials of Osiris, because I don't want to see any of these fuckers again. Like, so help me God. What are you? I'm still here doing the documentary. I'm about 3/4 in. So next, let me go into, what was it? It was a season of arrivals. It was like more or less the end of the road here. So I'll clock this in here on my phone. Hang on. And while I'm doing this, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Alright, bookmark. Alright, so season of arrivals. That had extended due to the coronavirus. And it was, I think that if I noted that right, I think that was one of the longer ongoing seasons that Destiny had. Bungie staffing was limited at that time, with no way for really any sandbox changes or updates to resume, or players of the game for that matter to even really receive updates without any planned maintenance. Around this time, the forums and raid marathon, the forums for Bungie and Tracker were more active. I didn't like this vibe, because it's like this game didn't really have a good air to the seasonal launch or the prolonged resumption. It's like they were being more active than usual when the company can't even humanly respond to feedback, like coming bugs. And that's why I said, okay, likely coming bugs or situations to house any systemic upkeep with TWAB if workers can't really get to the company's social spaces at the offices to correct them. TWAB being this week at Bungie, for those that don't know. So I'm just thinking, you know what, this is players setting themselves up for failure or bigoted exposure and all that misery of complaints want a nurse. And that's why I'm just like, wait, where have I heard this from before? Like, this is literally like another competitive cycle I've been in another video game. So I picked up the game from time to time at the beginning of the season, not the later end of the season. So it was like 40 or something games under my belt at the start of this thing that rewarded me a nice 1.6 KD before it started falling beautifully, with the growing engagement of Destiny's underbelly in competitive and vaguely Trials. So, see, I got the numbers in my advantage, and then it works against me the more I engage. Which, it proves my point, but, hey, the community's not going to believe that, so. Like, anybody can make their KD look good if you play at the right time. So, I picked up the game, and so in a two-pronged effect to counter the toxicity inbound, I'm trying to not indulge the toxicity that it keeps growing the more I keep engaging. So outside Crucible, I also started delving more into raiding in order to establish more of a well-rounded approach to playing the video game, because I've just been stuck in Crucible so long that I need to try and do more raiding. Also, low-key, I can kind of try and help the trying to become the Sherpa thing. So while limited on what I know and where I can go, I still gotta try. Like, apparently one's general stats of StatTracker and destinytracker.com both delve into a Guardian's history, even rating, through specific analytics, so it's potentially possible to a degree to know almost everything about a player's competitive or treasure hunting background. So, okay, if I can't get this in one area, maybe I can get this in another. So that way I can give myself less of a headache. I also tried to take on a leadership understudy, so it can also be on record that, okay, I've been around long enough to also help make a clan leader, share my knowledge, a sense of analytics, immunity, you know? That way, okay, suffering all these aneurysms through the years and playing this fucking game can hopefully help the next dude not mentally be dead. So, amidst the rank on DBOZ and the Rainbow Six Siege juggle, so I met this treasure hunter. He's a warlock. His name was CD. His name was Cory something. I know it's Cory. I was talking with in communities and ended up in the side sitting on this raid team that was comparable to me and Douglas's old Satanic King sitting, but with more interest to the raiding and less to the social aspect of PvP. It was a group called Syndrome. At the time, it didn't kick off right away immediately. It was because it was only after the one or two outings that happened that defined whether or not the group was really going to continue being a thing or not. So we got a decent Crown of Sorrows run without too much complication from Galron. And while I didn't get the chance to go, I wrote out the blueprint for one of the phases for the Garden of Salvation team. More specifically, the summoning of the consecrated mind. Because I had to study the shit of that thing in order to try and figure out how to properly explain it to a whole team of numbnuts that didn't exactly understand how that raid worked. And for context, so players got to split into 2 teams of 3. The others, one stays behind in the same area as the boss. The other moves into the next area phase that's beyond the Vex barrier. First team's got to kill multiple waves of enemies while the boss roams. The consecrated mind is invulnerable to damage during this phase. After some time, the boss splits some type of voltaic charge on the ground. One of those members got to go over and pick it up. It looks like some type of Vex conflux. Once they do that, boom, you're reflected with some debuff, the voltaic overload. It lasts for a couple minutes. If one player collects multiple overflow buffs, they die. So it's got to be split evenly between the 3 team members. If nobody interacts with a charge to get the debuff in time, it explodes. And then everybody dies. So it's important to task people that are cool and collected being under pressure with the hot fix of a ticking time bomb for 2-minute intervals at a time. You got to eagle eye these people coming in at the start when they're talking or giving input to the raid. Try and read your people when the team comes together, so that way you know where to shoot your shots reliably, and not let the wild people in the group stop momentum, filling in the shoes of roles they just can't do. You gotta let the players' habits kind of sow the seeds of the reward or the lack thereof. So, raid team, raid's effectiveness, we get the raid, boom, we're good. Alright, about a month or so later, the Syndrome raid team, it didn't stick. People didn't stick with it, and then people just left out but like maybe the 2 or 3 people. And it fucking sucks, because I had plans to really help CD expand this bad boy, or even escort the boys to my Discord, TACT City, if it stayed around long enough. Like, I hope it wasn't this raid that turned people off of wanting to delve more into it, or just the whole premise of raiding. Like, I figured it was a good stepping stone of sorts. Personally, I thought Scourge could have been more friendly or more beginner friendly to raiders, but that wasn't the rate of choosing that people wanted, so you kind of get what you get. I don't know, maybe it could have been the mechanics. One of the main mechanics in that raid was just the tether system, so it's kind of telling you where to go without actually telling you, if that makes sense. The usual objective of tether mechanics and stuff. It changed to people. It kind of changed to wherever it's going in order to guide you to an object that it's connecting to. So, Cory, raid team, raiders. Note 3. So, now in the Discord transition era of Destiny's social workings, post-fall of the PlayStation Communities tab, a lot of us are transitioning to private VC parties you can then edit into groups, or we use Discord, Facebook, MySpace, Instagram, wherever it is that you can call in order to apply communications, which I'm not comfortable with any of those options except potentially Discord. And even then, that's still not totally reliable. Like in True Vanguard's Discord, like there's a decent number of people in there that go and come. The LFG in there is decent. In later years, like the LFG in that group is actually kind of decent. Like they're not all like good, but there's good communications, and that's what I could appreciate. It's touch and go. Like it's similar results. You get your vocal players, the puppet place players, your lone wolves, the antisocial people, and your even further creative people. People that kind of just parkour in Crucible, and it either works or we just all die. I ended up out in this Discord like several months ago after the vague encounter with rejoining True Vanguard's Discord. Actually, it was just an encounter that I had with him, but I didn't actually get a chance to play against him. It was just in the same lobby as him, and then okay, I looked up his YouTube channel and then joined back in the Discord. Maybe there's a chance to get back up with him, I don't know. And then through that time frame of the transition, there was also a revolving door of old friends that popped up here and there around this time in mixed company, besides just seeing Flint and Killer and occasionally Rhino Mustache. And for those of you guys in chat or whatnot that are here in the documentary, Alpha Omega here, this is Flint. This is one of my oldest playing companions on PlayStation. And he's the one I was actually talking about in my story. But a lot of the revolving door of friends here is like him, Killer, Bubba, Lupovane, Brawlimus, Foxfire, SD Waves, Agent Toffee, Nick Tommy Guns, Morphe, hell, even Aqua Megadeth for the one time. Then later on down the road of that expansion with the seasonal expansion, seasonal extension, I decided to randomly meet up with CD one night, going through the motions or clarity. I approached our conversation just like it was any other time we met, just discussing Raiden and his blueprints to make up a decent squad and try and see if he wants to try and hit up some people that want to join back up, do raids or Iron Banana, but I don't know, I like grinding the rails with randos sometimes. He didn't realize that, honestly, that one, as much as I met him a few months ago before this sitting, I don't know, it could be seen as dickish, it could be seen as just kind of seeking something more, I don't know. But it would be one of the fewer times I started seeing him less and less after this. And it started going more into just either a loner phase or burnout era, I don't know. But it was one of the last times that I really sat with him and talked with him with his team. So he had an idea about the next raid he wanted to do, but wanted to push the team building narrative. So to speed this up, I gave him my aura of thinking to build on. So like, what was it? That was like when they first gave an idea of Beyond Light and talking about the vaulting of past raids, which I'm still somewhat pissed about with that, but it is what it is. Like, Beyond Light didn't really do D2 any favors in the PvE aspect, because removing 4 raids was harsh, but I could kind of accept that over time, since they all came with the Leviathan point of interest, since you're taking out Leviathan. But to take out Scourge was just fucking stupid. Like, it's not even associated with Leviathan. It's just weak from so much trash and bullshit from the devs that failed to communicate the point across. Like, they could have honestly kept the Scourge of the Past for new Light players. If they're gonna remove Leviathan and all of its stuff for Beyond Light, to go out with the old and with the new. But I'm still gonna go out on a limb and say that Bungie stated that since Bungie stated that they were going to be, what, the 3 new raids that were coming at that time, that was, what, Last Wish, Garden, and, Deepstone. Like, it was a very, like, it would be supposedly, what, detrimental for the new Light players to never get a chance to try out a raid, unless Bungie decides to do some type of re-renovation of the past stuff that they're taking out. Like, I know that, like, for me personally, this is my input. Like, Scourge of the Past, there's a lot of good factors to it that honestly would have been better for new Light players at that time if they wanted to keep at least one legacy-based raid. That could have been the one. Like, it's on Earth in the EDZ. It's a shorter raid than the others, so it's not long to do. The mechanics are simpler to understand and learn for newcomers. Hell, since Beyond Light is most likely going to be focused on the Fallen, and it did, this could be a nice tease for new players to be in an old Fallen raid before the new one comes out with the expansion, and the Anarchy would be a nice plus point in order to try and have something in your vault if you never had a raid exotic before. And the Anarchy was actually decent. Like, I don't know if it's good now in this sandbox. I doubt it probably is, but still. Anyway, like, they probably haven't ever really rethought their vaulting ideas. I wouldn't be surprised if later on they actually just take the premise of reselling it back to us. But it's just the small details of Shadowkeep niceties at that point, from Shadowkeep moving into Beyond Light, and the smaller details to think about in the bigger scheme of planning, and a lot of missed opportunity to newer audiences with the DLC outline. And in a time of trickle disposable content, like, they're gonna just remove a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure they have a plan to, and I still believe, to just recycle a lot of past content and just make it more about the money and less about the user experience, in order to just detour the free-to-play access premise, essentially. So, barring the raids and my investment to whatever raid he wanted to go into, so I just shared with him the fine points about, like, the leadership. And so if he's going to try and put together another team, I share with him the ideas about leadership and what you want to be honing in on most with team morale or your direction. You personally. You want to start with the direction, the organization, preparation, communications, availability, right? Having the biggest impact of team success. Try to translate your words better. When you know mechanics or your tech or your info or your callouts, try to pitch your relay of calls, raid or PvP, whatever, quicker or clearer without startling or confusing or stressing people. It's a part of human trial and error, because everyone's interaction is different when they receive information. Or like addressing concerns with difficulties in conversations. You want to, like shit in shits in raids happens. Words. Shit in raids happens. So it's key to pull people aside, or in these situations you can mute everybody but the one person in order to lay out your concern like sorting pieces of a puzzle. Just one at a time. Just don't appear and just put the person on blast without trying to tactfully talk to them. It's like you're calling them out. It's not a good look for the one in the position of power. Or try to invest in some players. Take the underperformance and try to tackle it as best as you can. Once you can ID the issue. Don't always try to take the whole quick fix band-aid route. Because there's just some issues you need to just look at closer. You have to take the time to look at issues closer. Put yourself in their shoes to better understand how they may respond to this talk. It gives you a better POV of how to tackle said talk. Might work, it might not work, but you got to try in order to show that you're reaching out. Or amidst underperformance, accept them during these moments of weaknesses, because people nowadays fight so hard to hide these moments of weaknesses. When it unveils, sometimes it's a mess. If it's not understood, or they feel that they're openly lacking, that's where you may lose them because of peer pressure or because of self-confidence issues. Don't lose them if they get there. And then if the rating thing takes off, I don't know. Building a good community or network in Destiny is hard, but it can be effective if you do it right. Bubba and Lupovane are prime examples of two people that founded a beautiful working social construct of a community where everybody is vocal. It's possible to do. It's not easy at all to do because you do come across good and bad people all the time. Sometimes it may be a wolf in sheep clothing. One is actually the other. You have to adjust the roster. You live and learn. Don't let history repeat itself, especially without a fight. Avoiding confusion is difficult, but you got to try to do it in order to settle your direction, and then try to have your own table of contents in a sense. Again, it's not easy, but you have to be strong. And I tried to straight shoot this as best as I could with Cory without losing him. But I also understand if the adverse effect may happen with him, because it's a lot of work to try to be this guy gradually if there's still holes in your own self-identity that you have to patch up. Like, it's a lot of work. Like, I can't stress that enough, that trying to put together a raid or being a clan leader of a raid or a raid leader is very difficult. Like, being in a position of responsibility a lot of the time is hard. You got to be a social type of person. If you're not social, then you're having a hard time getting your point across or even making one. Like, raid and squad leaders are the people who make an effort to manage and coordinate teams performing a lot of collaborative tasks such as these. Like, you'll know how important you're becoming when people start to see you more or are sitting with you longer when you're doing your thing, whatever that thing is. Like, knowing the good, that you also got to know the bad before you go further. Like, you want to avoid a lot of common pitfalls that await you. And it happens to all of us, sooner or later, about the falling points in one's narrative to making your team, or even making leaders, potentially. Like, you got the unfair treatment, the unconscious favoritism or subjectiveness, the attitude dampening and toning, or inhabiting engagement. Like, you can't be approachable. You want to have the atmosphere that you're approachable, which is what you work on in social skills, right? This is also stuff you can apply in real life to some degree in the workforce. Also, you want to avoid holes with your availability or delegation, avoiding burnout. Because when you're burnt out, you can't really lead or instruct or guide, actually, because you subconsciously don't want to. And I'm just wanting to have all these words because the action part will be long after the fact. Because there's a chance after I'm gone that he'll have a hard time setting up a team or probably keeping one together. That's this one. Because I didn't feel like he was the confrontational type, or he doesn't have the foresight yet, and he's not always like the real listening type. Like, you hear people, but do you hear them enough to respond, kind of thing. And I know this type of leadership from past communities. He's got holes in his style that can easily be patched up as long as he's wanting to delve into the love of the work before the elements of chance hate or elitism, competing interest groups, or just toxic people may corrode his POV from their way into this social space he created. Like, he's got to build his own experiences and tackle these problems and learn how to tackle these situations. And I just hope that his canister doesn't get corrupted quickly from the inbound exposure. His mindset is valuable to that group's ship as a whole and its prosperity. but at the same time, he also has to be exposed to these elements in order to know how to deal with them without being subjected to them. Alright, next bookmark. And this is where we actually go into the initially deleting the game here. Alright, so I'm going to take a quick break right here, and then I'm going to go on ahead and pick this up and continue this. We're just about at the home stretch. Alright. Guys out there, if you have any questions or whatnot, let me know while I'm sitting here on the break here. Okay. Alright, and we're back from ad, hopefully, since that ad went ahead and went through. Alright, if the ad went on ahead and went through, you guys can go on ahead and let me know if there's any questions or whatnot if you hear. I'll also go ahead and send the text to the same thing.
I'm chilling.
Alright, so home stretch here. So this is where we go into the later half of 2021, where I go on ahead and just delete this game. So it was time I started moving on because I needed to try to grow up from the cycle of a lot of creativity and a lot of creatively in-depth disappointment. And this just felt right to do one day, so I went on ahead one afternoon with this. It wasn't like anybody was really going to miss me or looking for me, except maybe one or two people, depending on if they really need me or if I'm a last resort. There's no obligation to me being here or needing to be here. Hell, the death of Cade 6 back in Forsaken, when it launched, 100% assured I had no other reason to be here, because that's one of the main characters in this whole fucking media I cared about. It was like grinding Nightfalls and Strikes. I enjoyed hearing his voice because it felt like I'm actually just grinding the game with him, or I'm grinding the game with Nolan, his voice actor. And the players and the other dudes that came in from time to time that kept inquiring games, while that's nice, I just wished a lot of them knew what I had seen through the past generations of Destiny 2 and know where I have been, to know where I'm going, or why I choose to be distant with people, or just I choose to be distant to avoid being relied on. And so I cleaned up my vault some more to stock up on the shards and prioritize the better rolled weaponry I could still possibly level up in the future. Its future sandboxes, and then I just went on ahead and deleted the game and went to the FGC permanently at this time. My thinking here was that I thought personally I'd be more accepted by the communities there for exactly the same effort I'm ostracized for and excluded from here, and actually be rewarded for a fucking change. Even though the years would show me how pathetically obsolete that point of view is, I still stuck by it. Since that decision, I haven't regretted dropping Destiny 2. That's been a load off of a ritualistic routine that's been blinding me vastly to better activities I never thought about doing or investing in or investing towards, because I was always here on Destiny. There's a lot of self-upkeep, TWAB updates of the sandbox, Nightfall and seasonal rotations, weaponry recoil awareness, knowledge of making builds, map knowledge, guardian subclasses mechanics, all the various PvE activities that seem to replace the other with some stupid sounding name. Even where Zur is most of the time just chilling in the cut somewhere. It's all easy to learn. It's just hard to commit to. because you have to apply yourself. Now, all of that is somebody else's problem to casually know or be burdened by. Honestly, it was like a drug, is how hard it was to actually stop playing, and to stop the whole Stockholm Syndrome effect that this game has with its players that just treats them wrongly, to have positive bursts of effectiveness that prolong inevitability. It's like an MMO RPG FPS hybrid crack house. Like, I had to really teach myself to put down this game in order to build myself back up, as if I never actually needed to be here. It's a lot of self-control I had to teach myself to create a new habit in order to flesh out past ones, and that was coming here to this video game, or being here for as long as I was. Destiny communities are not worth the headache trying to seek glory or contentment when they're only holding you back on purpose and gatekeeping you because you're new, or you're too different from the others there. Players begin to ostracize you and cast you out. You're easy to control or persuade rather than guide, like you should be as a veteran player if you've been here long enough to know the work. Like, you're easy to be a lightning rod of slander and criticism, and your social victories are just so hollow because of fake standards. It's like guardians are friends today and then enemies tomorrow, probably. Like, you remember forcibly, but you forget casually. I want you to think about that. And then nowadays, we kind of fast forward to where we are now. I didn't reinstall this game until like September 2022, somewhere around there. That was around the season of the Plunder. Was when I put this game back in and tried it out, because someone from some of my groups had asked about picking it up in order to play Iron Banner. So I guess you can say it's more of a chosen, restrictive online limbo rather than a forced one, since I chose to reject everything and everyone here on my own terms. Like, I personally waited a couple of months before really casually wanting anything to do with Destiny to see if the burnt out really sunk in. Like, via like a whole, like, again, a separate affair in the FGC, and then just delete it again, because I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have the urge to pick this back up. And the practice, it did go off. Like, that last burnout session, for whatever I did, it really did the job in me being corrupted from further passionate investment to this video game. Or at least I feel so. Like, I personally just practiced trying to make sure I can let this go and not get wrapped up and get wrapped back into playing just because people that I care about now are just now trying to get into the video game. The air around the platform hasn't changed, and it won't change, but unfortunately, no offense to them, they're not there yet. They're still too naive to understand where that game is going to take them if they really choose to love it. Like, the air around the game, for me, it needs to be different for me to attempt to enjoy it again, or maybe it may even do something about the feeling I have about this game now, because now it is nothing but a casual resentment for everything I came to love about this game. And that I just keep seeing the cycles over and over again that I seek to change, but ignorantly accept to play through the motions to get what I seek at the cost of massive pain. It's almost like mental masochism. And it just leads through a cycle of a lot of disappointment, grief, and possible corruption that I caused myself. Because there's so many times where I should have just left that I didn't. Because I chose to try to rise above the ignorance that was bliss in these communities at the cost of probably losing my sanity and becoming ignorant myself. Think about it. Like, really think about it if you're just getting into Destiny 2. Especially if you're just getting into it now, just because one of the newer DLCs, like be it like what? Beyond Light or Witch Queen or what's the shit now?
What's the latest report on Savathun's brood?
Lightfall, or any of these newer DLCs, just because they happen to catch your fancy, be it this Lightfall thing, or the Witch Queen, or Beyond Light. Like, okay, like, you're slow on Bungie's game outline, in my opinion. Because, like, older, smarter Destiny players are just being pushed out more, or pushed out altogether. The newer, dumb Destiny players are shoved right in. The casual gameplay is literally the meta, until maybe better players arrive, but the casual gameplay is basically where it's at. Competitive is a constant rotating educational cancer unless you're literally contributing to the cycle to equal the balance. The only way to see the benefiting aspect of gear grinding is from the victim's POV, not the victor's. Loot isn't original now. It's not going to be original as much anymore, if at all. It's either going to be more reskins, or I'm honestly thinking they're going to just be restoring more D1 classics. And raids are hollow. Raiding is honestly more of a necessity for gear than actually just doing a fun pastime. Like, in my opinion, being smart in Destiny is bad for your health. And I can't be convinced otherwise of this at this point. That knowing too much actually just kills you mentally. That's just my opinion about it.
Together, there's nothing we can't accomplish.
In closing, Mark, closing thoughts.
Let's get to
Like, I needed time to really be away from this game, to completely forget a lot of what was built upon the original
even if it won't defend us.
interest in wanting to come back and here to D2 after D1. Because what grew to be just me carrying kids through whatever the hell he asked about, because the guy doesn't take the time to learn on his own. I took the initiative to just invest in playing the game at my own pace, doing whatever else. And then what I thought was going to be fun turned out to just be loads of different versions of a nightmare. And just meeting different faces of stupidity and shame. And there's so many reasons why I wanted to love this game, and there's more reasons now why I almost never want to see the light of day on this game again. That people will just never understand. and I don't have the time to explain it, nor do I care to. It explains a lot about why I blow people off that ask me about, hey, get on D2, do you have time for D2? I refrain from saying to get the fuck away from me about this, but I kind of just let them say whatever they want to say, and then I kind of casually ignore them and just go on about what I was doing. That way you kind of get the idea that you can kind of go without me really needing to say, because you're talking, but you're not really saying anything. And yeah, there's the one or two times that I have been back over here just for sentimental reasons, like FGC business, or a birthday, or the time I came back here with when the passing of Lance Reddick, like when all the Destiny players came in back to honor, where we all gathered to honor Lance Reddick. For those of you guys in the audience that don't know Lance Reddick, throughout the last 10 years, Reddick is also, he's a very, very beautiful voice actor. He's done so much good work over the years. Like, he's been Sharon with the John Wick films. He was Silence in Horizon Zero Dawn. For players of like Bungie's live active service, everything here on Destiny, like, he's been the voice of Commander Zala, the Vanguard of the Titan, and the commander of the last city. Like, that's this dude here in front of me. I made it known for years that I didn't, nor did I ever like Zavala, the character. But his portrayal of the character is just so legendary. It's too well respected to just not give it respect. Like, he really made this character the character. And I respect that. Like, I came back, paid my respects, did my thing, and even played a couple of strikes with some of the dudes I was with that day, with some of the old raid parties from D1 that still somehow had this game. Kinda sorta content, I feel. I had my chance to play versus some of the best, or the more noteworthy and open Legends of the Crucible throughout the times. Like, I played Evade, I played Deicide, I played Drewski, I played the White Tiger, Ferris of them all. I've seen Mesa Sean, Crooked Fives. Didn't have the chance to play against him, but I was in the same lobby with him up for like, what, 5 minutes, and then that session was lost. But I had a chance to be in the same lobby with True Vanguard. And then even in Trials, despite all the incalculable shitty experiences through Trials, but I cherish the really great ones that I had with the people that I was with, that I cared about, and that I loved, and that I fought alongside. Like, I even had a chance to fight a couple of names even in Trials of Osiris that were trial sweats. Horrible matches, but beautiful train wrecks. Like, I fought Pure Chills and Steve Says GG. Oh my gosh, that dude's Warlock is inhuman. I didn't think I could actually almost rage at fighting a Warlock. And I'm as satisfied as I could possibly be right now in looking back at that, to have fought with such monsters during their time in battle amidst their respective reigns throughout the eras of past and modern day Crucible on Destiny 2. And as well as some of my own history, maybe, if I did enough to get Googled for it, I don't know. I just feel that there's enough physical and mental damage that the game has caused me, the community has caused me, and that I've done to myself, that I think it warrants a good turning point to leave this be, and hopefully it sticks for good this time, that trying to come back again, really, at the cost of trying to achieve greatness, what did I really achieve? Is the question I try to ask myself for like the past couple of years. What did I really achieve in coming back to try to have fun, but be made fun of? And that's honestly why even after tonight, I'll probably just go on ahead and just delete this again, just to make sure that I continue applying the lesson and it sticks. That I just can't have it like what everybody else has, no matter how hard I fight for it. And I've proven that I can fight as hard as anybody else, but it is just not good enough.
Cade is gone, and so now is Aldrin.
I think this will go on ahead and conclude the documentary of Destiny 2 here, from 2017 to 2021 respectfully. I will close it right here. So if there's any questions, comments, or concerns, just let me know. Take you guys' time. When it gets around, what's 3 hours, 23 minutes? When it gets around 3:30, if no one's asked any questions or whatnot, then I'll probably go on ahead and end stream and call it a night. I'm done.
That's how it goes. Like, people on Mortal Kombat are different, though. I don't know. I guess it's from the sound of
Oh,
it. So,
yesterday, okay.
Such ridiculous heck. Since you're in it, you gonna squeeze out a last hurrah, or you just gonna chill in lobby?
I go to close up. I guess I can go ahead and I can probably hit up a quick thing while I'm over here and leave it there.
Good to me. Well, there's pros and cons. It just sucks when you give so much time to something and then you just leave it alone, like completely. Like, that's all I say.
Yeah, because it's just like to go more, like to go further in here, like it would be to either finally get the flawless or get the legendary status in Crucible, so that way I can have the title of Unbroken. To get that would just require more pain and sacrifice that I just can't mentally do it with this game. And the thing is that as the generations go on with the game's communities, it's going to be more diverse with results. If I don't have a structured team to help this along in Crucible, or if I don't just make myself into some titan like Hulk.
Say you need a crew. Well, as it's not anything but this fun. As it stands, yeah, if I took this down.
Yeah, that's also why I was blowing off Tommy guns. Like, him and his friends, they're good people, but he really wants me to come back in this lifestyle, low-key. Because I've seen the abyss. He's seen the abyss. The problem that differentiates between the both of us is that I had to learn how to save myself. He hasn't gotten there yet. He's allowed himself to go deeper into the void. And he should probably be at that point right now where he's kind of approaching a wall where either people will or won't play with him because of atmosphere, or will and won't play with him based off of knowledge check.
Oh man.
Like, I enjoy playing with him, but at the same time, I try to limit it because if I play too long, I don't want to give myself the opportunity in any way, shape, or form to try to love this game again.
That's the important part, is not catching yourself up. Knowing your limits. Bitch.
Because that's like what I talked about in the Fighters documentary, the first one. I'm still debating if I actually need to redo that one or not because the audio in there is somewhat choppy. I'm hoping that the audio here came out good for the 3 hours I've been sitting here. But what I talked about, in that one is that for like 1 year in the fighting game community, I got the same, if not slightly better, results from streaming constantly over there compared to 6 years in Destiny. As soon as I saw that difference between acceptance, acknowledgement, respect at that time, and the growth of the platform, yeah, I dropped this shit like a bad habit and I didn't even look the fuck back.
And then the lightning, like, damn it.
And then it's kind of funny how that happens, that irony would actually kind of kick me in the ass now that I actually have what I have here in the fighting game community to a degree on console's platform. And now I'm actually kind of in the same spot. So it's kind of like a social equivalent exchange.
Well, I think you still made out better. At least your effort.
I agree. It's like the efforts are seen, and it's like I do have the people that like still come and go and like do respect what it is I do and have respected what it is I do to try and be a voice for online or be that guy you can come to for online. While you guys are here, if you guys wish to, you guys are free to help along with the donation to the drive. Oh, hang on. So that's the other thing that's also going to help me up my game eventually. Is if we can get this up and going here. I know people lose interest whenever it is I bring that up, and that's fine, I guess, that's life. But I do really need to get the goal taken care of, so that way I can potentially grind further to the gaming PC. That way I can up my game and I can do more for these communities on console. Like, the point of getting the PC is literally to help with all these different things more on console with representation and presentation. Like, PC's got enough people. Console is losing people. That's why I've stayed here as long as I have, in order to just prove to console that I've been here long enough to know the work. I just want you to trust me. Which is a difficult term in our 2023 times.
That's like asking for lead in the gold.
Exactly. Honestly, hopefully being a star on this game was what I had hoped to be. So if I could be something like the legend himself, or Wish You Luck, or what, any of those dudes I named in Crucible that were like either casual stars, or they even went on to be something in comp, or like a one-trick pony in Trials. I was hoping to make money off this game that would actually help get to this goal. Because I see that people really respect good Destiny players in these communities.
Oh yeah. I was wondering, why don't you like sell your services? That'll help you go towards your PC goal. It'll keep you disconnected on Destiny. Like, you're doing it for someone else, it's not for you.
That's actually what I wanted to try to delve into more as a job as a Sherpa. Because from having a lot of years invested into Destiny, that's what I originally wanted to try and do. Is to just try to sign in and make an account on the services that they have on Destiny. There's a couple of sites you can go to in order to apply and be a designated Sherpa. So if I know all the work like I do, well, a lot of it's outdated now, but I could go there, try to get paid for what it is I do, because there's literally people, like what I talked about in my story, there's people that pay, like what it is I do all the time, just to go and take myself to Fabled, that I can do in like, 2 hours now, that originally took me like half a season to do in the early stuff. Like, I could do that and make money off of that, and just like, probably make a quick $40-50.
Man,
but the problem is, people have to trust you to have them on their accounts, or to be in the same party as them. That way you can work around whatever they're doing in order to basically pretend like they're not there, even though they are there. So you got to try and make sure if you're going to carry them effectively and efficiently. And also, still, they're going to be able to do what it is that they do that's going to stack kills. So, heck, maybe you won't be carrying. But the key thing is that they're going to rely on you for the bigger bulk of the kill stacking. So you want to make sure you got your builds ready, everything's up to date, your weapons, your tech, matchup knowledge, map awareness, and all that stuff I was talking about. Or in terms of what Majin was saying, it makes you a Destiny sweat. It's not sweat, it just makes you a Destiny nerd. But it's a thought to try again. Or at least if I do, I would probably do it for raids rather than Crucible.
What's the difference?
Presentation to building a team. One is a team where you're going to have communication to positioning. The other is communication to carrying out of said positioning. For raids, it's a team-based activity where you're just in the right place at the right time in order to do these tasks. You literally just have one job or one or two jobs to do when you're in a raid, and you're done. That's literally it. You just have to do that same job and then repeat it over and over again until the boss is dead, or you get your damage phase for boss. Usually in most raids, the phase to set up is usually like what, you rep it 3 times. I think War Priest was 4 times, but that's just a special condition. Unless I'm wrong. But organizing raid teams is more fun. The hard part about raid teams is when it falls apart and you have to replace the raid team or you have to replace the team or replace the members. That's the harder part. That's what's harder than doing Crucible. Because you have to find a competent person that will either listen or will properly execute exactly what that role is. And if they don't know it, you have to explain it to them till they get it right.
Damn.
And if you don't explain it right or you don't have the patience with them, you lose that guy.
You gotta be a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. A Sherpa can be a person for PvE or PvP. Or both. Originally the premise of it was for just PvE activities. But as Destiny evolved, it became a more versatile term. And it's just like, it's more of a respect out of Destiny seniority. Valentine. Oh my gosh, where have you been? It is good seeing you again. LFGs are definitely an experience sometimes, bro. Tell me about it. I tell you, every time I go to LFG and say, hey, looking for blah blah, better buckle up, buddy. Just like that show, Buckle Up, Rubber Ducky. I've been lurking a lot. Did you, how long have you been here for my whole, origin story coming into Destiny? Because Realms didn't have any questions. Flint, one of the dudes I was talking about in my story, he's actually one of my mods on the channel. He was here earlier in the chat. And then 2 or 3 dudes earlier in my discussion, whether or not they were listening or they just wanted to play Destiny. It's all good. I mean, if you guys are still out there lurking, if you wanted to play Destiny, while I am here, I can do that. As much as I said I wouldn't, I can while I'm here since we're here. And you did wait patiently while I went over my stuff, so I can do that. Not too long. I think I've been here for like 20 minutes. What was the last thing you heard before I opened it up to the chat for questions? And also, I didn't know you played Destiny. I thought it was just Yu-Gi-Oh! But that kind of makes sense now.
Oh.
I don't remember. I was making food when I tuned in.
Be honest.
He's honest. Fair enough, man. Oh, when it's on YouTube, you'll know, and you'll get a chance to listen to everything. I just hope that the mic quality came through, and then you're good to go. I'll go on ahead and get ready to, as soon as I find out who's on, see if I can send this raid over to somebody. And I thank you for the 2 subscriptions at the beginning of the stream. I appreciate you guys a lot out there, because I gotta try and secure the bread as best as I can. Yo, oh my gosh, with the gifted sub to Realms. Oh, Valentine. Yo, thank you so much for the gifted sub out there. Hey, Realms. Hey, let me know if you got the emotes.
Too flawless.
I have an idea for something I want to do. I can tell you after stream. Sure.
Okay, it's over easy eggs. I'm gonna send it.
Okay.
I love egg. Sorry.
Over eggs. That's kind of a godlike name.
Her voice is it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, all those links that I talked about or that I referenced throughout this thing were also going to be featured in the video, so you can also click them directly. So the rant video I talked about, or the trials when trials first came in, the match with FaZe Nasty, the original bio of D1, all those things that are just basically in my Destiny collection already, they'll be attached to this. Oh, that's obviously if you want to chat. Yeah, Realms. Yeah, once I wrap up here, I'm definitely free to chat.